Chapter 2164. Li Xiaoyao's old enemy. I'm sorry. I'm indeed the Death Arrow martial god. Moreover, I'm also the #1 king of the Great Saint region. I'm truly sorry for hiding it from you all for so many years. Finally the man spoke. The reason I didn't say anything was because I didn't want to disturb these peaceful days. Because all of you would leave me if I did. Hearing this, the child and his mother both looked at the man in shock. They never thought that the family member they lived with day and night would be such a terrifying powerhouse. At that moment, the man seemed to have become a stranger to them. But soon, the child gritted his teeth and continued to hold his father's hand. No matter what kind of existence his father was, or how many people he had killed, he was still his father. The mother was the same. She didn't say much and used her actions to express everything. She also touched the man's hand, causing him to feel moved. Sir, Jian may have done something wrong in the past, but he has changed. He just wants to live a peaceful life with us. Please let us live. The woman looked at Lin Ling and bowed respectfully. Hearing this, Lin Ling coldly shook his head. Your husband and I, that was a fated battle. It had already happened in my previous life. His lifelong wish was to kill me, so today, I'm here to fulfill his wish. However, he seemed to have realized that he was no longer a match for me. Thus he decided to hide. Am I right, Death Arrow martial god? Once those words were spoken, the Death Arrow martial god's expression became extremely gloomy. That was because that was indeed the case. He was already afraid of Lin Ling and did not dare to provoke Lin Ling anymore. He even regretted teaming up with the other ancient giants to frame Lin Ling. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Since he had done such a thing, then he had to bear the consequences. He couldn't avoid it even if he wanted to. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. If you have any problems, come at me. Suppressing the regret in his heart, the Death Arrow martial god walked out and shielded his wife and child behind him. Seeing this, Lin Ling sneered. A hero of a generation has fallen to such a state. However, I want to ask you, if I die, will you let my family go? Hearing this, the Death Arrow martial god couldn't answer, and his face immediately turned gloomy. Based on his previous personality, he would definitely not let Lin Ling's family off. After all, he represented the Grim Reaper. But now he would. Unfortunately, even if he explained, would Lin Ling believe him? In fact, even he didn't believe in himself. Can we let them go? They don't know anything about me. However, the Death Arrow martial god still asked. Perhaps he was hoping for a fluke. Lin Ling smiled without saying anything. He pulled out the sword in his hand and pointed it at the Death Arrow martial god. This world is very fair. If you are strong, I will die. If I am strong, you will die. Under the cruel rules, it depends on who is stronger. Who can walk through the wind and waves. Today I have walked through it. Therefore, let our fated battle begin. Sir, Jian admits defeat. Please spare his life. The woman hurriedly said anxiously. She also noticed that her husband was afraid of the handsome young man. Obviously, he was not the young man's opponent. Lon, you're too kind, so you've infected me. All these years, I've been very happy living here. I've never thought that living with ants would be so comfortable. Perhaps, I've killed countless people in my life in pursuit of the supreme martial arts, but I've lost myself in the process. The Death Arrow martial god smiled, but his smile was extremely sincere. Moreover, he gently kissed the woman's forehead. However, the world has karma. The cause left behind in the past, the effect left behind today. This battle is unavoidable. However, for all of you, I will fight to the death. If I lose, our family will enter the cycle of reincarnation. After he finished speaking, a pitch-black bow and arrow appeared in his hand. In the blink of an eye, the arrow was knocked on the bowstring. This speed of drawing the arrow was indeed worthy of the title of the #1 archer of the human race. Rumble! The surging power of the law also roared. Although the archers were killing gods who hid in the dark, they were not weak in a face-to-face confrontation. This was because their attack power had always been known for its sharpness. One arrow to decide victory or defeat. The Death Arrow martial god shouted coldly. He firmly believed that he could win. Swoosh! The arrow was shot out, but what was terrifying was that the arrow was extremely ordinary. It was only when it got closer and closer to Lin Ling that the terrifying power of the law erupted. It had actually reached 150 million laws. Moreover, all the laws were directed at Lin Ling. The others could not feel any sense of power. This was the terror of the archers. The firmament sword immortal and the others' faces turned serious. To be honest, the death arrow martial god could be called their senior because the latter was their master Li Xiaoyao's nemesis. Let's end this. However, in the face of the arrow, Lin Ling's face was extremely calm. With the ancient sword in his hand, one sword could break 10,000 laws. On the huge sword, there was a mysterious power lingering around it. The sword slashed down fiercely. Crack! A thunderous sound was heard. Under several gazes, the terrifying arrow was cut in half by Lin Ling. Lin Ling held the sword and moved forward, like a peerless sword god. Master's boundary origin is so powerful. Seeing this, the firmament sword immortal and the others gasped. Lin Ling was already stronger than them. The most terrifying thing was that Lin Ling was only a rank 4 martial emperor. So powerful. The death arrow martial god was shocked. If he remembered correctly, Li Xiaoyao had only comprehended the boundary origin when he was at the peak of the martial emperor realm. Lin Ling was even more terrifying. He finally knew why he could not defeat Lin Ling. Swoosh! At that moment, a sword slashed down and a mysterious power bloomed. Bang! The arrow in the death arrow martial god's hand was cut in half by the sword. Furthermore, his right arm was also cut off. Moreover, there was a mysterious power that seemed to dominate everything. It tore apart the source of the physical force in his elixir field. This is the power of the boundary origin. I have been chasing after it my entire life, but I have never been able to obtain it. The death arrow martial god sensed the loss of the laws in his elixir field. He immediately smiled bitterly. Lin Ling had used the boundary origin to cripple him. However, he was convinced of this and he had no choice but to hand over the stone sculpture fragment. The winner dies and the loser is in the wrong. At his age, he naturally knew this principle. Then, he stood together with his wife and son, hoping that the family could die together. They looked at each other and there was only the kind of love in their eyes. In reality, love was something that no one could control. Even if one was an ambitious and ruthless character, the death arrow martial god found it hard to control. He didn't know that he, the #1 archer god, would eventually fall in love with an ordinary girl. However, if he was given another choice, he would still choose to continue loving her. However, when they were ready to die, they looked up and realized that Lin Ling had disappeared. It was as if he had never been there. Only the wind blew gently and the surroundings were extremely quiet. Chapter 2165. Shocking the 4 races almost at the same time, Lin Ling's cold voice resounded in his ears. The death arrow martial god is dead. From now on, you are only a hunter. This voice caused his body to tremble even more. For a moment, he couldn't say anything. As for the child and the woman, they quickly knelt down and kowtowed towards the sky. This was because those godlike experts had actually spared them. Arrow, who is he? After the woman kowtowed, she looked at the death arrow martial god with joy. The opponent that I have looked up to my entire life and worshipped. Unfortunately, I have failed on the path of martial arts, and he is still moving forward. The death arrow martial god said word by word. His words came from the bottom of his heart. He finally understood why he couldn't compare to Lin Ling. However, this is no longer important. The important thing is that the death arrow martial god is dead. Relax. The death arrow martial god felt incomparably relaxed. This was because he had obtained a new life and could spend the rest of his life with his family. In just a short 2 hours, the news of the death arrow martial god's death swept across the entire Grand Saint realm like a storm. The news also spread to the 3 profound realms, the ghost race, and the devil race. This caused the 4 races to explode. Lin Ling had finally made his move. Each of the ancient giants was about to face his crusade. At this moment, the 4 races were in turmoil. The ancient giants were completely terrified. The Yellow Spring Emperor was dead, Immortal Drunken Wine was the same, and even the Death Arrow Martial God was dead. Who could stop Lin Ling? What? In the godly kingdom, the Sun God King's expression finally became serious. The Sun God King was not afraid of Lin Ling killing 1 ancient giant. However, what if Lin Ling killed 3 in a row? This meant that Lin Ling had completely become a force to be reckoned with. The same thing happened in the immortal divine kingdom. At this moment, the entire nation was in an uproar because they knew that Lin Ling would come to the immortal divine kingdom. And this was indeed the case. After killing the death arrow martial god, Lin Ling went to the godly kingdom. Lin Ling really wanted to kill the immortal divine king, because the latter was too hypocritical, actually deceiving him. When Lin Ling appeared in the immortal divine nation, the entire ancient divine nation was looking at the elegant man walking in the sky. For a moment, the entire nation was silent. The nation of God could only look up to the number one genius of the human race. They're finally here. His vengeance is like a storm. Is he the little prince's friend? It wasn't the first time Lin Ling had come to the immortal divine nations. So many people recognized him. However, no one expected that the youth who seemed to be low-key in the past would actually be able to threaten their strongest immortal divine king today. And at this moment, in the palace of the immortal divine nation, the immortal divine king's face was also a bit panicked. Big brother, I've already told you not to provoke Lin Ling. Now, you regret it. The immortal Buddha Lord looked at the immortal divine king with disappointment. His big brother was usually calm, but at the critical moment, he actually went to provoke Lin Ling. The immortal divine king frowned, and his face was extremely ugly. How could he know that Lin Ling was so powerful that he could still come back alive from the barrier passage? Moreover, he didn't know that Lin Ling's strength had increased crazily in such a short period of time. If he knew this, he wouldn't have dared to provoke Lin Ling. Then what should we do now? The immortal divine king looked at his brother and said. The immortal Buddha Lord also frowned. Although his big brother was wrong, he definitely couldn't watch his big brother die. How about I leave the immortal divine nation first? After all, I don't think the Sun God King will dare to help. He might have already escaped. The immortal divine king said bitterly. However, as soon as his voice fell, a cold voice spread throughout the immortal divine nation. A dignified divine king of a generation. Do you only want to escape? As soon as this voice fell, the entire palace exploded. Lin Ling had come. Many powerful warriors trembled in fear. When they heard Lin Ling's name, they were all afraid. Rumble. At this moment, a rumbling sound spread throughout the palace. The roof of the palace was forcefully lifted by someone, and several slender figures floated in the sky. The one in the lead was a man in a blue and white robe. He was as elegant as the clouds. Who else could it be but Lin Ling? Looking at that fiendish figure, the immortal divine king's heart trembled fiercely. Lin Ling had come, and he had come in a domineering manner. Their immortal divine nation had been established in the nation of gods for so many years, but this was the first time they had encountered such a domineering character. He had directly killed his way into the palace. Do you want to fight to the death? Or commit suicide? Lin Ling looked at the ground indifferently and spat out a sentence. This sentence carried the power of looking down on the world. Two choices. Fight, or commit suicide. Hearing this, the immortal divine king was so angry that his body trembled. Was Lin Ling humiliating him in front of his people? However, he really didn't have much confidence in fighting. Because he had also heard that Lin Ling seemed to be able to kill ancient giants as easily as flipping his hand. Lin Ling, the immortal divine king is our divine king in the end. For you to humiliate him like this, isn't it too overbearing? At this time, there were people from the immortal divine nation who couldn't stand it anymore. Shut up! Rumble! Surging white flames bloomed, forming a majestic 6 paths of reincarnation. It actually trapped the entire immortal divine nation. You all know that he is the immortal divine king. A grand divine king actually dares to frame me. Isn't he too shameful? Moreover, since he dares to frame me, then he will have to suffer my wrath. Lin Ling's gaze swept across the entire immortal divine nation and coldly said, Of course, if you all want to support the divine king, that's fine too. However, the outcome will be death. Boom. As soon as this voice fell, the entire nation was silent. In a world where the strong were respected, strength represented everything. If there was dissatisfaction, then let strength speak for itself. Unfortunately, who could compare to Lin Ling in strength? Get the hell up here. Then, Lin Ling looked at the immortal divine monarch and said. The immortal divine monarch stood there with a gloomy expression. He didn't dare to go up for a while. Lin Ling, this matter is my big brother's fault. I apologize to you here. Seeing Lin Ling's domineering aura, the immortal Buddha Lord quickly spoke. He didn't expect that he would have to look up to the youth of the past today. Lin Ling's gaze softened after hearing this. The immortal Buddha Lord didn't betray him and could still be considered his friend. He lightly said, "Immortal Buddha Lord, I consider you a friend, so we can talk about anything. However, this matter is not negotiable." The immortal Buddha Lord immediately smiled wryly. Lin Ling didn't even give him face. In the past, he would have thought that this young man was too arrogant. However, he didn't think so now because Lin Ling had the qualifications to do so. Moreover, it was his big brother who was in the wrong first. "Lin Ling, spare my uncle's life. I, Zhang Yingjun, will agree to be your slave." Right at this moment, another voice resounded. Zhang Yingjun knelt before Lin Ling under the gazes of countless people, and he kowtowed incessantly. Sigh. Seeing this, Lin Ling sighed softly. Zhang Yingjun was a friend he had met during his adventures. They had a good relationship and Lin Ling considered him a brother. Chapter 2166. Send you to samsara, get up. Out of respect for you, the immortal god monarch doesn't need to die. After pondering for a bit, Lin Ling finally spoke. His words caused Zhang Yingjun and the others to laugh in excitement. Even the immortal divine king's heart relaxed. He never would have thought that the one who saved him was actually that disappointing nephew of his. It had to be said that his nephew actually knew a benefactor. Come up. However, Lin Ling not killing the immortal god monarch didn't mean that he would let him go so easily. With his temperament, if Zhang Yingjun wasn't here, he would have already turned the other party into dust. Hearing this, the immortal god monarch's heart trembled. He didn't dare to face Lin Ling, big brother. Hurry up and go up. You have to be sincere when admitting your wrongs. Immortal Buddha Lord quickly reprimanded. The immortal god monarch clenched his teeth and flew into the sky, arriving in front of Lin Ling. Lin Ling walked over step by step. His long hair and blue robe fluttered in the wind. All of this fell into the immortal god monarch's eyes, causing his heartbeat to accelerate. He didn't dare to look directly at Lin Ling. Are you afraid of me? Suddenly, Lin Ling spoke softly. I'm not. The immortal god monarch was worried about his face and spoke with a bit of trepidation. However, everyone could see that he was indeed afraid of Lin Ling. However, the dignified god monarch of the godly kingdom was actually afraid of someone. This made the powerhouses of the immortal divine kingdom feel like they were dreaming. You should be glad that you have a good nephew. Lin Ling spoke again. Then he shook his head and said, Your life can be left behind. However, in order to trap me in the past, you used billions of lives to lay down a formation. At that time I said that when the day comes that you will also be an ant, you will feel how lowly you are. So now, I will cripple you and send you into samsara to live the life of an ant. I am the dignified immortal god monarch. You want me to be an ant? The immortal god king's complexion changed and he said in disbelief. However, Lin Ling's following words caused him to fall silent. You can resist, but the price of resistance is death. Be crippled or fight, it's your choice. Fight or be crippled. Countless thoughts raced through the immortal divine king's mind. If he fought and couldn't defeat Lin Ling, then his soul would scatter. But if he didn't fight, then he wouldn't die, he would only be crippled. Both of these choices were very difficult. They were the most difficult choices he had ever made in his life. I won't fight. In the end, the immortal divine king raised his head and looked at Lin Ling. He clenched his teeth and said, But I want to know, how will you defeat me? You will know. Lin Ling's palm grabbed out. There was the power of realm essence swirling around it, grabbing the immortal divine king's dantian, directly shattering the source of his true force. What kind of power is this? You actually crippled me? The immortal divine king's pupils immediately widened. Although he didn't want to fight, he still didn't plan on becoming a cripple. Who would have thought that Lin Ling would be so straightforward? Moreover, Lin Ling's methods were too mysterious. He could actually shatter his power of laws. This was too terrifying. He suddenly felt lucky that he didn't fight Lin Ling, otherwise, the outcome would be death. The power you have pursued your entire life. As for crippling you? Compared to the billions of lives that died in your hands, crippling you is letting you off too easily. But now, enter the cycle of reincarnation for me. Come back after reincarnating. Lin Ling's lips curved into a cold smile. The 6 paths of reincarnation in the sky brought the immortal divine king into the cycle of reincarnation. The power I have pursued my entire life? Could it be? You actually comprehended it. The immortal divine king seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. With a bitter smile, he disappeared into the cycle of reincarnation. In the past, the sun god king found him and asked him to cooperate to deal with Lin Ling. That way, he would be able to obtain the third statue left behind by Li Xiaoyao. He didn't hesitate at all and directly agreed. The reason was that he felt that although Lin Ling's talent wasn't weak in the end, he still couldn't compare to these ancient giants. However, that decision was actually the biggest mistake of his life. Because he underestimated Lin Ling. Seeing the immortal divine king disappear without a trace, everyone's expression became complicated. Lin Ling killed his way into the immortal divine nation just like that and crippled the immortal divine king in their eyes, yet they were helpless. They could only watch as Lin Ling left in a carefree manner. Don't worry, I promised not to kill him, so I won't kill him. I'm only letting him enter the cycle of reincarnation. Moreover, you don't need to think about finding him and then helping him, because once he enters my cycle of reincarnation, you won't be able to find him. He will only appear in an ordinary place and become immortal, experiencing the life of an ant. After a lifetime, he will return. All right. After leaving behind this sentence, Lin Ling left with the firmament sword immortal and the others. Meanwhile, the immortal Buddhist lord's wry smile became even thicker. Others would certainly be happy to become immortal, but for the immortal divine king, this was the same as entering hell. One moment, he was a god-king existence, and the next, he became a cripple. This huge contrast wasn't something anyone could accept. The news of the immortal divine king being crippled quickly spread throughout the godly kingdom because this was the fourth ancient giant to be destroyed. Moreover, according to the rumors, Lin Ling's revenge didn't encounter any setbacks at all. All of his opponents were directly destroyed in a domineering manner. This also proved Lin Ling's terrifying strength. At this moment, the entire godly kingdom seemed to be shrouded in thick dark clouds. The experts from the Fire Cloud Empire and the Sun God Kingdom acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They were afraid that Lin Ling would come at any time. They knew that Lin Ling's flames of vengeance would definitely affect this place. Moreover, the entire world knew Lin Ling's temperament. If others didn't offend him, he wouldn't offend them. If others offended him, he would return the favor tenfold. In just a moment, the people from the Fire Cloud Empire and the Sun God Kingdom were in a state of panic. However, the more worried they were, the faster the nightmare would descend. Rumble! In the distant sky, thunderous sounds came. Under countless gazes, 3 figures walked in the sky, and between them was an ancient black snake whose end couldn't be seen. The ancient snake was ferocious, and its roar shook the heavens and earth. On top of the serpent was a handsome and otherworldly youth. His blue robe fluttered in the wind, and his sword shocked the world. Lin Ling had come for revenge. Plap! Seeing this scene, the entire Sun God Kingdom became silent. No one doubted Lin Ling's determination, and no one doubted his strength. However, was Lin Ling going to kill their Sun God King just like that? The Sun God Monarch was their faith and the sky in their hearts. Pa! Footsteps came one after another. All of the experts from the Sun God Kingdom came out. They were densely packed and covered the earth. Lin Ling, please leave. Cold shouts drifted out in an orderly manner, shaking the heavens. Ha! On top of the giant serpent, Lin Ling's long hair fluttered in the wind. However, he frowned slightly. Asking him to leave? His gaze immediately looked at the palace in the distance, but he was a little surprised. This was because his left eye saw that there was a mysterious aura in the palace that blocked his vision. This scene was very strange. After all, there were very few things that Lin Ling could see through in this day and age, especially after he obtained the 10,000 demonic eyes. Chapter 2167. When an expert raged, millions of corpses would fall. Obviously, the key memories should be with the remaining ancient giants. And now, he could only find out everything by killing his way into the palace. Lin Ling, please leave. On the ground, thousands of martial artists shouted in unison. They were chasing Lin Ling away, and they were also protecting the Sun God King. The grudges of the pugilistic world are long-lasting, and time is like a song. Since it's the karma between me and the Sun God King, then it should be settled by me and him. What do you mean by blocking me? Lin Ling said indifferently. We don't mean anything. Because the Sun God King is our faith, our parent, we won't allow anyone to violate his dignity. On the ground, an old man walked out as if he represented the world. So, you're blocking me? Lin Ling frowned. That's right, we can't let you disrupt the order of the world and violate our king. On the ground, loud and mighty voices rang out. Every martial artist was filled with righteous indignation. They were fearless and fearless, causing Lin Ling's eyes to narrow. If this had happened in the rainforest's holy land, his subordinates would also be so loyal. I just want to say that I don't have any grudges with the Sun God King, but he joined forces with others to frame me and steal my treasures, causing me to almost die in the ghost realm. Anyone would take revenge for this. Lin Ling's expression eased. He didn't blame the people on the ground. He liked loyal people very much. Although they didn't follow him, their character was indeed not bad. Since your king, your faith, has drawn his sword against me, as a swordsman, I will definitely draw my sword. If he's really worthy of you following him for a lifetime, then he should come out and take responsibility. Lin Ling said again. Now that you're strong, you're high and mighty? Don't forget, when you met the Sun God King in the past, he was like a dog. You came to the Sun God Kingdom today to show your strength, right? Very well, we all know that you're very strong. You've pretended enough. Can you scram now? Scram. However, Lin Ling was reasoning with them, but the martial artists on the ground shouted tyrannically. Rumble. The entire sky was filled with their majestic voices, telling Lin Ling to scram. Every injustice has its perpetrator, every debt has its debtor. The Sun God King came to kill me and failed, so I came to kill him. Could it be that this is not the truth of the world? Lin Ling's voice became cold as if winter had arrived. Anyway, you are not allowed to offend our king. If you want to feel superior, go somewhere else. However, the martial artists on the ground coldly shouted again. They were extremely unreasonable, as if their sun god monarch was their faith. Others couldn't be killed, and Lin Ling was an ant. If he died, then it was a matter of course. If he didn't die, then he should be lucky and live well. He shouldn't come for revenge. If you want to invade our king, then you'll have to step over our dead bodies. Look at how many people we have here. If you kill all of us, can you bear the blood debt? On the ground, that elder coldly shouted, actually reprimanding Lin Ling. And there were indeed many of them, over 100 million. This debt of blood was indeed heavy. Can you bear the burden? Under the elder's voice, tens of thousands of voices followed, forming a terrifying tornado that rolled towards Lin Ling. However, this force couldn't shake Lin Ling at all. Instead, it aroused Lin Ling's strong killing intent. His left hand stretched out. What are you trying to do? Seeing Lin Ling's action, many martial artists on the ground coldly shouted. Could it be that Lin Ling dared to kill them? There were hundreds of millions of people. Lin Ling could kill them all? However, Lin Ling remained silent. In his palm, the white flame jumped wildly. It was clearly fire, but it was extremely cold. Master, let me do it. Seeing this scene, Sword Immortal Tsong Tian and the others coldly shouted. They knew that Lin Ling was going to kill them all. However, hundreds of millions of lives were indeed a heavy debt of blood. They didn't want Lin Ling to bear it alone. No need. Today is the cause I sowed. If there is a result in the future, it will be the result I bear. This debt of blood, I can bear it. Lin Ling said word by word. In his left hand, the 6 paths of reincarnation from the 9 serenities hell flew out, forming a terrifying cold killing intent. You really dare to kill us? On the ground, those people's faces stiffened, and they were all shocked. Hundreds of millions of lives. Lin Ling dared to kill them? There is nothing I don't dare to kill. Lin Ling's cold voice drifted out. In the sky, the terrifying 6 paths of reincarnation erupted with a turbulent suction force, burning and reincarnating everything. We have the elderly and children here. The Sun God Nation panicked. The hundreds of millions of lives were all terrified. Because Lin Ling really did it. In an instant, countless lives were burned. The fearlessness from before completely disappeared at this moment, and what replaced it was the sound of pain. As time passed, a large number of lives were brought into the cycle of reincarnation and wiped out alive. Lin Ling ignored those painful voices. His face was expressionless as he stepped forward like an emperor. Above the palace of the Sun God Nation, he slashed out with his sword. Rumble! The gorgeous palace was divided into 2. In the palace, a huge blazing sun lay there, emitting flames like the sun god king. Seeing the blazing sun, Lin Ling frowned slightly and slashed out again. Rumble! The dazzling blazing sun was divided into two, but in Lin Ling's eyes, the sun god king was not there. He had obviously escaped. See, this is your faith. Your faith allows you to resist the enemy in front, but he himself escaped. You are pathetic. Lin Ling put away his sword and stood there, looking at the people of the world mockingly. As for the people on the ground who were burned, their faces were all stiff. Their king had escaped? And in order to protect the emperor, they had actually risked their lives in the front line? They were indeed stupid. If the sacred ground of the rainforest is attacked by experts one day, the one standing in front will always be me, Lin Ling said coldly, turned around, and slowly left. The sacred ground of the rainforest had gone through so many ups and downs, but every time a great calamity descended, who would appear at the front line if not Lin Ling? At least, such a leader was worth following. The Sun God King was just a joke. We've all become scapegoats? The people on the ground felt extremely complicated. They also felt that they were pathetic because the king was heartless. They had all become scapegoats. However, Lin Ling did not show mercy. Because they had chosen this path and were so arrogant, they had to pay the corresponding price. Moreover, Lin Ling had given them a chance because he had been reasonable from the beginning. Unfortunately, these people were too ignorant. No one could change what they had decided, unless death came. In that case, let death wake them up. Billions of lives. Chapter 2168. With a clear conscience, killing 100,000 or 1,000,000 wasn't a big deal. Even 10 million was normal for experts, but hundreds of millions was terrifying. It could be said that if it was on the human side, it would be more than half of the people in Xianping province. I can afford it. Lin Ling continued to move forward and said indifferently. Looking at the lonely figure, martial god Yungu felt even more complicated. She knew that her master wasn't a cruel and ruthless person, but the two sides had different standpoints, so the only result was life and death. And this world was also extremely cruel. There was no eternal winner. If her master died in the ghost realm, then the one to be destroyed today would be the rainforest sacred land. Therefore, for his family, for his friends, for his hometown, Lin Ling chose to bear the blood debt and enter hell to be a villain. But he had a clear conscience. The Sun God Nation gradually calmed down. What was terrifying was that there was no blood, no corpses, because everyone had been burned to ashes. The only thing left was the merciless reincarnation in the sky, constantly bringing souls into the cycle of reincarnation. The entire Sun God Nation was destroyed. This was the anger of an expert, millions of corpses. And from now on, the Sun God Nation had become an empty country. And the news spread throughout the world, causing a huge wave to rise in the four clans. Lin Ling's revenge was getting crazier and crazier. He was also proving to the world that if they dared to kill him, Lin Ling, as long as he, Lin Ling, didn't die, then this debt would be repaid. Master, are we going to the Fire Cloud Empire next? Following Lin Ling, martial god Yungu looked at the determined man and asked. No need. If the Sun God King can escape, then the Fire Cloud God King can naturally escape too. Lin Ling shook his head and said, what a pity. If I had enough time, even if they escaped to the ends of the earth, I could still find them. But I don't have enough time. Xian Yuangu and the others' flames of life are getting dimmer and dimmer. But Master didn't take back the statues he left behind. Dog Dragon Emperor said with a frown. It doesn't matter. Their statues can only obtain a part of the cultivation method and weapons, but they won't be able to obtain the most important thing. So I guess they will surface in the Battle of Creation 2 years later. Now, let them live for another 2 years. Lin Ling led the disciples towards the rainforest sacred land. And in the distant demon realm, the Sun God King's complexion was ferocious. His family, his people, they had all died. Lin Ling, I will definitely kill you. He faced the sky and roared. The Sun God flame on his forehead showed signs of transforming into a demonic flame. On the other side, the Devil Nation's Crystal Master and the 400 million great demon kings had all disappeared without a trace. They were hiding in a remote corner to cultivate. They were extremely sullen in their hearts. A dignified great demon king actually had to run away. However, they firmly believed that 2 years later, they would definitely obliterate Lin Ling. This stone sculpture of mine contains a powerful divine weapon. If it is refined, it will definitely be able to crush Lin Ling. In this seclusion, I will reach 1 billion laws and become the strongest person in the world. The ancient giants who had not died could only live a life that was neither human nor ghost for the time being. They were looking forward to their revenge 2 years later. Unfortunately, they did not know that no matter how powerful their laws were, without the boundary essence, they would never be Lin Ling's opponent. When Lin Ling returned to the rainforest's sacred land, he first released Lord Xueqi, Lord Pu and the others. He also left the small saint behind. In this way, the human race's side could be said to be filled with experts. Yu Mengyun, I will send you to comprehend the boundary essence. Whether you can succeed or not will depend on your luck. Among everyone, Yu and the others had the highest talent, so Lin Ling helped them first. Seeing this, all the ancient giants were filled with anticipation. They also wanted to see what the boundary essence was. If you want to enter the martial god realm, you must have the boundary essence seed. The boundary essence can also grow. An expert has to change all his laws into the boundary essence. Only then will he be a true boundary master. Lin Ling explained with a smile. Currently, he had obtained a large number of statue fragments, so he knew a lot more things. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Then, they saw Lin Ling stretch out his right hand. A white light lingered on his arm. It looked dim, but there was an indescribable power emanating from it. Lin Ling slashed out with his right hand. It was as if a power that surpassed heaven and earth erupted. Rumble! The void was opened, revealing the boundary essence channel. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. One had to know that experts who were proficient in the laws of space could slash open the void. However, it was not a void channel. In order to open a void channel, one could only use a boundary essence channel. But now, Lin Ling had easily opened a void channel with a slash. The power of the boundary essence was really terrifying. There are thousands of worlds in this world. I have already found the most suitable one for you. Go on. Sensing that the void channel had stabilized, Lin Ling looked at Yu and the rest and said, Lin Ling, we will go in. Yu and the rest looked at Lin Ling with reluctance. Then, they walked over and hugged Lin Ling and Lin Yi. Finally, they entered the void channel. This time, they hoped that they could successfully comprehend the boundary essence. Lin Ling looked at them with reluctance. However, he believed that Yu and the rest would succeed. I am so envious. Sword Immortal Cong Tian and the rest licked their lips. The boundary essence was a power that every warrior yearned for. They were no exception. Don't be envious. When your laws reach 1 billion, I will send you to comprehend the boundary essence. After all, in terms of talent, you are still not as good as Yu and the rest. Lin Ling laughed and scolded. Thank you, Master. Sword Immortal Cong Tian and the others nodded excitedly. Opening the path to the infinite realms was not something that anyone could do, but their master could. Lin Ling, we want to go too. Immortal came, martial god Tian Yu, the guardian of the mortal realm and the other old seniors smiled. Following Lin Ling, these old fogies also benefited. When your laws reach a certain level, I will send you in. Lin Ling nodded and chatted with them for a while. Then he entered the house. There were 2 women lying there. One was Shen Yuan Go and the other was Yuan Shigu Looking at them, Lin Ling felt a little guilty. If it weren't for him, these 2 beauties would still be alive. Wait for me. I will find a way to save you. Lin Ling kissed Shen Yuan Go's smooth forehead gently and then left resolutely. He and Shen Yuan Go had just been together, but they were separated again. This made Lin Ling feel extremely helpless. This time, his target was the martial god realm. Because he would be back soon, he did not inform anyone. Father, you will definitely succeed. Lin Yi, Ancestor Tai Yan and the rest knew that Lin Ling had once again embarked on the void channel, so they all came to send Lin Ling off. After I leave, you must cultivate diligently. Don't slack off. Do you understand? Chapter 2169. Qingzhou Martial God Camp, Grandfather, Mother, everyone, I'll leave for now. In the end, Lin Ling took a deep look at his family, carried the ancient sword on his back, and flew towards the sky. Go. Ling you died in the martial god realm in your previous life. You'll find the answer when you reach there. Elder Tai Yen and the others were also a little reluctant because Lin Ling had just arrived and he had to leave again. On the path of martial arts, one would fall behind if they didn't advance, unless they could surpass 10,000 worlds one day. However, they were proud of Lin Ling. Run. If you can escape from this world, I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, when I come back, you'll all die even if you run to the ends of the earth. After Lin Ling left the rainforest's sacred land, he floated in the sky and swept his gaze across the entire sky. After a cold smile, he strode away. The Sun God King and the other ancient giants thought that Lin Ling couldn't find them, but in fact, Lin Ling had already seen them. However, due to the lack of time, Lin Ling decided to let them be proud for the time being. Once again arriving at the void passage of the ghost realm, Lin Ling walked in and passed through the mysterious path of the martial god realm. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in front of him. When Lin Ling approached it, he immediately felt an extremely wonderful feeling wrap around his body. By the time Lin Ling opened his eyes, the sky was even higher, the land was even more vast, and the spirit energy was even denser. The sky here seemed to be endless. Martial God Realm. Lin Ling's lips curled into an excited smile. It was a smile of anticipation for breaking through the bottleneck and reaching a new world. From the North Territory? At this time, an indifferent voice floated over. Under the lofty mountains in front of him, two slender figures stood on top of the mountain. A pair of indifferent eyes looked at Lin Ling as if they wanted to see through everything about Lin Ling. So strong. And Lin Ling was also looking at them. His left eye could sense that these two mysterious existences had extremely dense world essence energy on their bodies. Of course, to be cautious, Lin Ling quickly retracted his gaze. It's been many years since anyone came to the North Realm. I didn't expect that someone would finally step into the martial god realm today. And he looks very young. One of the men said with a smile. This man was nearly 2 meters tall and wore a uniform. His hair was brown. Lin Ling had never seen anything like that in his life. The other was an old man with long golden hair. He seemed to be quite old, but he seemed to be quite cynical. He played with a mysterious flame in his right hand as he stared curiously at Lin Ling. Greetings, seniors. After sizing him up, Lin Ling said in a neither arrogant nor servile manner. We are the guardians of the world seat, so you don't have to be too wary. However, you came from the North Realm, and no one has come to that place for a long time. This means that your talent is not bad. The brown-haired middle-aged man said with a smile. It's more difficult to comprehend realm energy in a weak realm. You can comprehend realm energy at the peak martial emperor realm. That's not easy. His smile was very sincere. It seemed that he also came from the North Realm, so he had an inexplicable sense of familiarity with Lin Ling. However, just as he finished speaking, the old man beside him said in horror, "This young man seems to be only at level 4 martial emperor realm." What? Hearing this, the brown-haired middle-aged man's eyes narrowed. In Qingzhou, a peak martial emperor who could comprehend realm energy was an amazing existence. As for a level 5 martial emperor who could comprehend realm energy, they were geniuses from various realms. However, the young man with the big sword was only at level 4 martial emperor realm. Wasn't this too fierce? Moreover, his realm energy has reached 10%. The old man said again. World essence. In the beginning it was the seed of world essence. Next it was the conversion of laws. The more one converted, the stronger one would be. But generally speaking, most world essence seeds had just risen. Lin Ling had reached 10%. One must know that if he reached 100%, he would be the master of a world. This young man is not simple. Moreover, it seems that he hasn't even cultivated for 1,000 years. The brown-haired middle-aged man finally looked at Lin Ling seriously. To a martial artist, 1,000 years of cultivation was considered a junior. 10,000 years was the real standard. Haha, an amazing fellow has come to our North Realm. However, let me remind you, the martial god realm has gathered the most ferocious experts of various realms. If you are too dazzling, you will attract unnecessary trouble. The golden-haired old man said with a smile. I have a set of chi concealment divine art here. Cultivate it and it can roughly conceal your aura. Lin Ling quickly thanked him. He was not a newbie and he naturally knew that it was his first time in this place. It was always right to keep a low profile. After that, he received the jade slip the old man tossed over. After he checked it, the realm energy on him was concealed, and it seemed like he only possessed realm energy seeds. As they watched Lin Ling cultivate without any bottlenecks, the two seniors were secretly surprised. They never expected that Lin Ling's comprehension ability would be so strong. He had learned the Qi concealment divine art with a single glance. Where do you intend to go next? The martial god barracks of Azure Prefecture. That place is quite cruel. The two seniors were slightly surprised when they heard this. Lin Ling blinked. Actually, he didn't know where the Azure Prefecture martial god barracks was, but the mysterious blue-robed young man definitely had his reasons for pointing him there. Not to mention that he wanted to save someone, so the Azure Prefecture martial god barracks should have a way. That place is very cruel indeed. To be honest, it's just an army barracks. However, it has its own benefits. If you're able to enter it, then you'll be able to obtain everything you want. Of course, it's very difficult to become a member of it because failure is death. The brown-haired middle-aged man frowned as he spoke. Even though he'd only met Lin Ling once, Lin Ling was from his hometown. So, he didn't want to see Lin Ling head to the Azure Prefecture martial god barracks. Most importantly, Lin Ling's natural talent allowed him to choose a better place. Thank you, lords. I still intend to head to the Azure Prefecture martial god barracks. Lin Ling bowed. All right. The two of them exchanged glances and tossed a jade slip over. Lin Ling received it and immediately looked through it, and the jade slip provided him with directions. There was no time to lose, and Lin Ling hurriedly bid his farewells and left. Go on. I hope you'll be able to gain a firm foothold in Azure Prefecture. The two seniors said with a smile. Azure Prefecture had gathered a large number of experts from various worlds. Most of the experts who possessed boundary seeds in the vicinity had gathered in Azure Prefecture. As he walked along the main road, Lin Ling felt extremely relaxed as he looked ahead. There were huge unicorns galloping in front of him. Lin Ling quietly looked with his left eye, and was surprised to find that the unicorn's strength had actually reached level 5 Martial Emperor realm. The things in the Martial God realm were truly abnormal. As he walked along the main road, gradually, more people appeared. They were dressed in all sorts of clothes and seemed to be experts from various places. Of course, on the surface, those people looked very young, about 20 years old. However, in terms of strength, they definitely surpassed the Sun God Emperor and the others in Lin Ling's world. Chapter 2170. Iron Blood Ancient City. At this time, a voice came from the side. Two young men were looking at Lin Ling in surprise. One of them was extremely tall, with a small braid on his head, while the other was dressed in a black robe. He looked somewhat cold, and there was a hint of disdain in his eyes when he looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling naturally didn't care about that gaze. He smiled and said, "How do you know?" "Yes." The tall young man rolled his eyes. "Walking on this road, where else can we go if not to the Martial God Barracks? Moreover, the Martial God Barracks is opening this year, and everyone is rushing there." "Yes. That's my negligence." "Yes." Lin Ling smiled awkwardly. "Don't tell me you just came to the Martial God world." "Yes. That seems to be the case." "Yes. Just look at you, then let's go." "Yes." After chatting for a while, the three of them walked along the main road. Perhaps because they came from other places, they weren't familiar with each other, but they didn't hate each other either. Through the conversation, Lin Ling found out that the tall young man with the braid was called Pan Luyun. He came from somewhere in the southern border, and was one of the top geniuses there. His father had rushed him to the martial god world to raise his cultivation. As for the cool young man called Lu Changfeng, he always had a look of disdain on his face, and didn't talk much with Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling had seen countless people, and knew that this guy was just pretending. Lu Changfeng also came from another world, and his strength was above average in his family. He came to the martial god world to see a wider world. Compared to them, Lin Ling was a bit speechless. Because in his own world, he was the strongest, but these two were not the masters of their own worlds in their own homeworlds. As the three of them walked forward, more and more people appeared in front of them, and their strength was unfathomable. "There are more and more people." "Yes." Pan Luyun was somewhat excited. Lin Ling's eyes also lit up. The first thing they saw was a huge city made of steel. This city was blood-red in color, as though it was a military city made of iron and blood. Outside the city walls, there were many young people walking on the streets. Their faces were filled with excitement. Compared to Lin Ling, who knew nothing about the martial god realm, The others were clearly more familiar with it. Qingzhou Martial God Barracks. If he couldn't fly, then it would be a land of death. However, although it was cruel, the people who came here were all the strongest powerhouses of their respective worlds. So what was there to fear? I've finally arrived. I've been walking on the spiritual road for 3 months. This long journey has finally come to an end. If I can become a member of the Martial Gods Battalion, hee, I'll be able to go home proudly. Hee, with so many people competing, do you think it's easy? You're not the only genius from the various worlds. Along the way, there were voices everywhere. When Lin Ling and the others entered the city, they found that the city was full of people. Moreover, from time to time, they would see some youths wearing armor, smiling as they looked at the newcomers entering the city. They were all pointing at them as if they were experienced people. Moreover, when they entered the city, Lin Ling sensed that there were people on the city gate checking the people entering the city. It seemed that those who had cultivated for more than 1,000 years were all not allowed to enter the city. This might be a rigid standard, which meant that those who entered the city were all from the true younger generation. So cool, these buildings are all made of steel, which is rare in our world. Pan Luyun was extremely excited. A frog at the bottom of a well. Beside him, Lu Chengfeng was acting as usual. Lin Ling ignored them. He was thinking about how to find a way to cure Shen Yuan Go and the others. Let's go and have a meal first. The food in the Martial Gods Battalion is said to be very good, and the most important thing is that it's free. Tisk. Then let's hurry up and occupy the seats. Pan Luyun pulled Lin Ling forward, which surprised Lin Ling free. This was too good. Lin Ling, don't think too much. After all, this is a military camp, and it might be the last meal of your life, so it's definitely free. Lu Chengfeng said disdainfully. This guy was slowly becoming more talkative. Lin Ling was speechless. This was the same as going on the road after eating a full meal. Wouldn't they become hungry ghosts after going to hell? The three of them randomly found a restaurant and walked in. Inside the restaurant, there was a sea of people, and the sound of laughter could be heard continuously. There's a seat over there. Hurry up. Pan Luyun's eyes were sharp, and he quickly pulled Lin Ling and Lu Chengfeng over. After all, if they were late, the seat would be snatched up. The three of them quickly sat down and looked at the menu, licking their lips. After all, this was the first time they had eaten the food of the martial god realm. You guys, move aside. However, just as Lin Ling and the others sat down, 3 figures appeared in front of them. They seemed to be a little late, so they had their eyes on Lin Ling's table. Seeing this, Lin Ling acted as if he did not hear anything, and so did Lu Chengfeng. Instead, it was Pan Luyun who said, "We saw this seat first, so what right do you have to ask us to leave?" "Oh, you're talking to us in such a tone?" Among the 3 of them, a young man in a blue uniform frowned and said, "We're from the Xueqi County, and you're from the countryside. However, I don't think you understand, so I'll tell you directly. We're warriors from the martial god realm, and you're from the lower realm, so you have to give up your table and chairs to us." Another young man in a gray robe said lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, the restaurant became silent. Most of the people present were from the lower realm, but those people were from the martial god realm. This was indeed the difference between the countryside and the city. Pan Luyun's expression changed slightly. Lin Ling could see that although Pan Luyun's strength was not weak, he was not as experienced as Lin Ling had imagined. Of course, this was normal. Lin Ling's realm was relatively weak, so the weak were prey to the strong. It was extremely cruel. Pan Luyun was a young master of a family, so naturally, he did not have much experience. "Shopkeeper, give me a martial god cow, preferably spicy." Without thinking much, Lin Ling looked at the menu and said lightly, "Good, and a few bottles of good wine." Lu Chengfeng, who was next to him, also said and looked at Lin Ling in surprise. "Okay, right away." "Yes." Immediately, a voice came from the depths of the restaurant. The restaurant became even quieter. Many people stared at Lu Chengfeng and Lin Ling. These 2 guys were really bold. As for the 3 young men from the martial god realm, their expressions were ugly. "Do you know what the Xueqi County is?" The young man in a gray robe said coldly. In fact, Lin Ling was new here, so he really did not know what a county was. "Brother Chengfeng, is the martial god realm always so lively? Eating a meal, and people come to watch. Is there no food to eat?" Lin Ling said with a smile. His expression was calm. Lu Changfeng, who was next to him, was stunned. Then he said, "Maybe these people are born to be cheap." "Yes. You're right." "Yes." Lin Ling nodded seriously and looked at Pan Luyun. "Brother Pan, what do you think?" "Yes." Pan Luyun was surprised by Lin Ling's courage because he saw that Lin Ling was only a rank 4 martial emperor. However, since Lin Ling and Lu Changfeng had spoken, he gradually became less afraid. If they bark a few times like a dog, give them a few bones, it's not a big problem. Yes. Chapter 2171. Saika Commandery, you're courting death. The young men were enraged, and the grey-robed young man directly attacked. At the 5th level of the martial emperor realm, his laws had reached 10 million. From this perspective, they were much more talented than Heavenly God 9 Suns and Fire Cloud Unification. After all, in Lin Ling's place, one would need to be at least a 7th-layer martial monarch in order to possess 10 million rules of order. Can't even withstand a single blow. At this moment, a gust of wind drifted out and turned into a palm that slapped towards the grey-robed youth. His laws had reached 20 million. It was Lu Changfeng. He was also a rank 5 martial emperor, but the number of laws he possessed was terrifying. Although the martial god realm comprehended the world essence, the laws were also very important. After all, the world essence was converted from the laws. Bang bang bang. The grey-robed young man was struck by the law, spat out a mouthful of blood, and retreated. "Qingfen, you actually have 20 million precepts?" Pan Luyun cried out in alarm. He sensed that Lu Changfeng had not unleashed his full strength. Furthermore, he had not used his boundary origin seed. The people in the restaurant were also extremely surprised. The grey-robed youth felt a wind whistling through his body, causing him to feel numb. It was difficult for him to even move a finger. "Kill them!" He roared angrily, and the 2 people beside him pounced over. They burst out with more than 1,000 laws. If the 2 of them joined forces, they should be able to suppress Lu Changfeng. "Go back!" And at this time, white flames filled the air, forming a mysterious circle of samsara. Laws surged out in a mighty manner. Lin Ling also made his move. 50 million nomological laws? A sky full of flames appeared in front of the 2 people's eyes, causing their expressions to change drastically. Then the gloomy and cold flames surged towards them, causing them to fly backwards and smash into the wall, causing them to spit out blood. Fire attribute martial artist? Heavens, he was only a level 4 martial emperor. Yet, he possessed 50 million nomological laws? Is this guy the genius martial god of the commandery? Impossible, these people seem to be from the lower realm. I didn't expect that there would be so many fierce people in the lower realm this year. It was as if the restaurant had exploded. Everyone was shocked. After all, a rank 4 martial emperor possessed 50 million precepts. If he were to convert his boundary essence, the power of his boundary essence would not be weak. Most importantly, Lin Ling had a lot of room for growth and great potential. After that, many people stared at the 3 young men mockingly. The 3 of them had come on behalf of their commandery, but they had lost to warriors from the lower world. How shameful! 50 million nomological laws. The 3 young men's faces were ugly, and their eyes were filled with fear as they stared at Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling frowned. He realized that the 6 paths of reincarnation in the martial god realm was much weaker. But this was to be expected. The 6 paths reincarnation represented the laws of his world, and in this world, the power of the laws would definitely be weakened. Still not getting lost? Do you want me to treat you to a meal? After that, Lin Ling sat back down and muttered to himself, "Kid, you've got guts." The 3 young men glared at Lin Ling angrily. In the end, they left behind some threatening words and strode away. Lin Ling naturally wouldn't care about such threats. Although he didn't want to cause trouble, with his many years of combat experience, he naturally wouldn't be afraid if others came knocking on his door. "How are you so powerful?" Lu Changfeng and the other young man looked at Lin Ling in surprise. They had not expected Lin Ling to possess so many precepts. Moreover, along the way, Lin Ling had left a good impression on them. He was low-key and calm. They had not expected this guy to be so fierce when he was angry. "You're really something." Lu Changfeng laughed, and the disdainful look in his eyes finally disappeared. Lin Ling had gained his approval because Lin Ling should be an arrogant warrior. Moreover, Lin Ling should have killed many people. In fact, if the Qi concealment divine art had not concealed Lin Ling's aura, they would have discovered that Lin Ling's murderous aura was several times stronger than theirs. Although they were also geniuses from their respective hometowns, there were people stronger than them in their hometowns. Therefore, when they encountered great storms, most of them were blocked by their seniors. As for Lin Ling, he was the #1 emperor realm master in his hometowns. When he encountered great storms, he could only rely on himself. Therefore, his murderous aura was naturally stronger, and his style of doing things and experience were stronger. You haven't used the boundary seed yet. Otherwise, your strength would be even more abnormal. Pan Luyun said again. Isn't it the same for Lu Chengfeng? Lin Ling replied with a smile. Pan Luyun shook his head helplessly and said, both of you are abnormal. Although the three of them had met by chance, they were like-minded. After a very happy meal, they all left. The young man in the restaurant looked deeply at Lin Ling and Lu Chengfeng. He knew that the difficulty of entering the martial gods' camp had increased because of these two guys. The inns in the city were also free of charge. Lin Ling and the other two casually found an inn to stay in. That night, Lin Ling sat cross-legged and waited for the martial gods' camp to open the next day. With the help of the 6 paths of reincarnation, his current nomological laws could reach 50 million. However, this was not his limit. His left eye kept flickering as he recalled the time when the Netherworld Emperor had used the 6 paths of reincarnation. Gradually, his 6 paths of reincarnation increased again. It had reached 55 million. And this was extremely terrifying. This was because he had only comprehended it for a short period of time, but his progress was monstrous. This was how terrifying the 10,000 demonic eyes were. Even when he wanted to comprehend it again, due to the limitation of his cultivation level, it was difficult for him to increase his nomological laws. After all, Lin Ling was only a rank 4 martial emperor, and his own nomological laws were only 350,000. Now that he had 50 million nomological laws, it was naturally beyond his limit. Lin Ling stopped cultivating. He thought of his home, his grandfather, and Yu Yu and the others. Even the scene of him having sex with Yu Yu and the others appeared in his mind. In that hazy state, Lin Yi also had many younger brothers and sisters. After a quiet night, when Lin Ling woke up, he smiled bitterly. He did not expect to have such a dream. After washing up, he went downstairs. Pan Luyun and the others had been waiting for him for a long time. When they saw Lin Ling, they could not help but smile. After a simple greeting, the three of them immediately headed toward the martial gods' camp. As they walked forward, an iron-blooded military camp began to appear in front of them. A thick murderous aura soared into the sky as if a god of war was sitting on the ground. The aura was so strong that even Lin Ling gasped. His left eye could see that it was a kind of universal power. Clearly, the universe was more mysterious than the heavens and the earth. The person behind the martial gods' camp has a strong background. Lin Ling thought to himself. Indeed, there was always someone stronger in the martial gods' world. Looking around, the surrounding youths were also very powerful. Most of them were rank 5 martial emperors, and a few were rank 6 martial emperors. However, their bodies had powerful nomological laws, and the power of realm essence was faintly discernible. The others could not see through this, but Lin Ling's left eye could. He compared them and found that some of them were people that even he had to be wary of. Such people would definitely be the #1 emperor in Lin Ling's world. Fortunately, there were not many of such experts. Following Pan Luyun and the others, Lin Ling and the others stood in line under the scorching sun. Chapter 2172. Punishment. However, although the queue was long, it was extremely orderly. There were iron blood soldiers at the front, and their gazes were like lightning. No one dared to act rashly. Get out of the way. At this moment, there was a small movement at the back of the queue. 3 figures were cutting the queue. Moreover, wherever they passed, the young experts who had come to sign up changed their expressions. They endured the humiliation and let them cut the queue. This was because they were from Xueqi Commandery. The process of cutting the queue was extremely smooth. Gradually, they arrived behind Lin Ling and the others. Get out of the way. It was still the same cold sentence. However, when the 3 people raised their heads, they realized that the people in front of them were Lin Ling and the other 2, who had embarrassed them yesterday. You want us to get out of the way? Lu Chengfeng suddenly laughed. His laughter was very evil. The 3 people trembled. The leader, the gray-robed young man, looked terrible. How could they be so unlucky? What happened? The three young geniuses from Cutie Commandery didn't cut the queue? It seems like they kicked an iron plate? Haha, it's great that someone can deal with them. At the back of the queue, many people were secretly excited. Okay, it's none of your business. We won't cut your queue. Hearing the voices behind them, the three people could not put down their pride, so they braced themselves and said, at present, it was impossible for them to continue cutting the queue because they were no match for the three guys in front of them. However, Lin Ling and the other two were stunned when they heard his words. They wanted to cut their queue, but seeing that they were weaker than them, they gave up. Did they think they were fools? Brother, do you think your cultivation will be affected if you bask in the sun for a few hours? Lin Ling asked kindly, as if he was looking at a friend. The gray-robed young man was stunned and shook his head. The power of the sun won't affect us. He did not understand why Lin Ling asked this question, but soon, he had an ominous feeling. Since it won't affect you, go and bask in the sun. Lin Ling smiled. His smile was very friendly. However, with a wave of his right hand, the gray-robed youth was thrown out and smashed into the ground in the distance. Lu Changfeng and the rest naturally followed suit and tossed the remaining two people out of the room. You're courting death. After the three of them crashed to the ground, they all roared loudly. Not convinced? Then let's fight. Hearing those voices, Lin Ling replied indifferently. He had already seen those three domineering people cutting the queue. Who knew that they would cut the queue in front of him? Then he would definitely throw them out. After all, these years of experience had taught him that after some grudges were formed, blindly tolerating them would not change anything. Therefore, it was better to make a clean move and consider the other party's background later. Fight! The three of them didn't dare to speak anymore. Their faces were ashen. Seeing this scene, the crowd was secretly delighted. Finally, there was someone who could deal with those three fellows. What are you doing? This is the military camp, not your home. Are you basking in the sun? At this time, an angry shout came from the front. The aura was extremely terrifying, as if it were a world king. The three youths immediately panicked. The gray-robed youth hurriedly said, Sir, this has nothing to do with me. We were thrown out. The military camp is not a place for you to play. Also, you are a dignified man and yet you were thrown out. This is simply a disgrace to all martial artists. Since you like to bask in the sun so much, then bask in the sun for a day. A man in black armor solemnly said, Me. The three youths were even more unwilling. They were unlucky. After encountering Lin Ling and the others, they had been unlucky again and again. Unfortunately, the military camp was the most dignified place. Iron orders were like mountains. What they hated the most was making excuses. Fuck off. Fuck off. The man shouted once more. The three youths didn't dare to speak again. They could only slowly bask in the sun. Of course, they hated Lin Ling and the others to death in their hearts. But Lin Ling didn't care about them at all. Instead, he stared at the armored man with surprise. This was because he could feel that this man's strength was truly at the World King realm. Then, he looked away and a voice sounded out from beside him. It seems that we all misjudged you. This fellow must be an extraordinary existence in his hometown. Lu Changfeng began to speak more and more to Lin Ling. I also think so. That is because your arrogance has far surpassed our imaginations. Pan Luyun also nodded. A person's temperament could be seen from their small movements. Lin Ling was very low-key in front of them, making them think that Lin Ling was an ordinary powerhouse. But Lin Ling was ruthless towards his enemies. This sort of person had clearly experienced many trials and tribulations. Do I look like an extraordinary existence to you? In truth, I am just a very ordinary person. Lin Ling helplessly shook his head. He was only doing things according to his usual temperament. As for Lu Changfeng and Pan Luyun, they carefully stared at Lin Ling and nodded in unison, yes. Lin Ling was speechless. After that, the registration process went extremely smoothly. The Martial God Battalion sent out a message to everyone. Quietly await the military camp mission at night. Those who completed the mission would not only become a member of the Martial God Battalion, but they would also receive a promise from the Martial God Battalion. And this was what Lin Ling valued the most. There were so many powerhouses in the Martial God Battalion. They would definitely have a way to cure Shen Yuan Go and the others. The afternoon passed quietly. When dusk arrived, all the youths were filled with anticipation. Lin Ling and the other two were the same. However, before the mission of the Martial God Battalion arrived, 4 figures appeared in front of them. 3 of them were the 3 people who had been punished during the day. The other person was somewhat unfamiliar, but his cultivation was at the 6th level of the Martial Emperor realm. Brother Su, it's the 3 of them. The gray-robed youth pointed at Lin Ling and the other 2. His words caused the person beside him to narrow his eyes. His small eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Without a doubt, they were here to settle scores. Lin Ling was used to this. He had seen this kind of thing many times. Lu Chengfeng was obviously experienced. On the other hand, Pan Luyun was somewhat nervous. Although he was not weak, in terms of experience, he was not as experienced as Lin Ling and Lu Chengfeng. They are from Xueqi Commandery. Are you bullying them? The youth with squinted eyes walked over with his hands behind his back. He spoke in a low voice. He could see that the 3 people in front of him were not strong. One of them was even at the 4th level of the Martial Emperor realm. Although his law was not weak, he thought that was all there was to it. After all, no matter how strong a martial artist from the lower plane was, it was impossible for him to be stronger than a native martial artist. Why don't you ask what happened? When we were eating in the restaurant, they came to snatch our seats in a domineering manner. When we were queuing up, they cut the queue in a domineering manner. No matter what, they were in the wrong first. Lin Ling said calmly. So you bullied them? The youth still squinted his eyes. Even if the people from Xueqi Commandery are in the wrong, we will punish them ourselves. It is not up to you to lecture them. Is that so? Why do I think that even if they are in the wrong, you will not punish them? Chapter 2173. The Grand Commander, I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Since this is a military camp, I'll give you a chance. Slap yourselves 3 times and I'll let this matter rest. The young man said without looking at Lu Chengfeng. His eyes were like torches, ready to devour them. Lu Chengfeng's face turned ugly when he heard that. Did he think that the warriors from the lower realm were all trash? Just as he was about to speak, Lin Ling spoke first. I'll also give you a chance. I'll also give you a chance. Slap yourselves 10 times and I'll let this matter rest. Bullying the weak was common everywhere, so Lin Ling also gave tit for tat. Haha, what a big tone. Let's see if you have the strength. The young man frowned and took a step forward. A terrifying aura spread out. He also had 50 million laws, and his boundary origin seed was extremely powerful. In addition, his talent was extremely mysterious. When he released his aura, countless ghost heads bared their fangs and brandished their claws, covering the sky and the sun. That's Lord Su. He's the one with the most hope of becoming a member of the Martial God Barracks. He's from the Su Tai Commandery. He's really amazing. Why did he attack those juniors? I heard that those juniors taught the people from the Su Tai Commandery a lesson, so he'll definitely attack them. Those people are in for a hard time. If they weren't in the Martial God Barracks, they might have been killed. The young men in the surroundings started to discuss. Lu Chengfeng and Pan Luyun's faces changed slightly. They sensed that the young man's boundary origin seed was stronger than theirs. However, at that moment, a figure stood in front of them. Endless killing intent spread out, forming a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood that collided with the countless ghost heads. What? The killing intent was so strong that Lord Su's face changed drastically. Even Lu Chengfeng and the others turned pale. It was as if they had seen the god of death descend. That was because the killing intent on Lin Ling's body had reached hundreds of millions. Everyone present had killed many people before. However, even if they were murderers, they would only kill in the tens of millions. It was extremely rare for them to kill in the hundreds of millions. Normally, it would only appear on experts who had cultivated for more than 1,000 years. In fact, they didn't know that Lin Ling's killing intent came from the Sun God Nation. If it weren't for the expert guarding the world, who had taught him the concealment divine art to conceal his killing intent, Lin Ling's killing intent alone was enough to deter others from approaching him. At the same time, the eyes of some soldiers from the Martial Gods Battalion flickered. That young man had such a strong killing intent. Men, kill him for me. Suppressed by Lin Ling's killing intent, Su Jun immediately roared because he couldn't hold on any longer. However, he actually ordered the soldiers of the martial gods battalion in the distance. By the way, Su Jun's brother seems to be Su Tianxing. This lord entered the martial god camp 10 years ago. It's him? He seems to be a commander. This is going to be troublesome. There are hundreds of commanders in the martial god battalion. However, to be able to become a commander, every single one of them is extremely powerful and authoritative. The expressions of many young men changed drastically. Hearing those words, Lin Ling frowned, and so did Lu Chengfeng. Can't you hear me? My brother is a commander of Tianxing. If they find out that you don't listen to my orders, then all of you will definitely be kicked out of the martial gods battalion. Su Jun roared once more, causing the soldiers in the distance to frown, but they remained indifferent. However, right at this moment, a smiling voice drifted over. If we don't listen to your orders, then will your brother kick everyone out of the martial gods battalion? After that voice, a man in white armor with long hair that casually fell to his shoulders walked over. Grand Commander. All the soldiers bowed respectfully when they saw the man. A Grand Commander was a true world king. Lord Commander. All the young men bowed respectfully as well. On the other hand, Su Jun's expression changed drastically. Grand Commander? That's a position even higher than my brother's. He hurriedly bowed as well. Ah, don't bow to me. I'm afraid you'll kick me out of the martial gods battalion. However, the man in white armor spoke indifferently. His words caused Su Jun's heart to tremble, and he almost knelt down. The martial gods battalion is a military camp. No matter what position your brother holds, it's your brother's ability. You're only a cultivator who's here to take the test. You don't have the qualifications to order my soldiers. The man in white armor's aura changed. For your brother's sake, slap yourself 3 times. Also, your brother is a commander, right? If he wants to advance to a grand commander, then I'll have to consider it carefully. The man in white armor continued. Remember, this is a military camp, not your home. Everything depends on the results. As soon as he finished speaking, the young men in the surroundings shouted in admiration. On the other hand, Lin Ling looked at him and nodded inwardly. The martial gods battalion was worthy of being a military camp. Iron orders were like mountains, and the rules were extremely strict. Su Jun was dumbfounded and even fell to the ground in fright. Slapping himself 3 times was nothing to him, but he seemed to have affected his brother's future. If that was the case, then it was possible for his brother to kill him. My lord, it's not like that. Su Jun wished he could slap himself a few hundred times. Why had he been so stupid to order those soldiers? When faced with a commander who treated his soldiers like his own children, such orders were equivalent to courting death. Oh. Then tell me what happened. I'll listen carefully. If things go wrong, your brother might even be stripped of his position as a commander. The man in white armor smiled. Plop. Su Jun didn't dare to say anything else. The crowd was secretly laughing. In the military camp, iron orders were like mountains. Whatever the Lord said was law. Su Jun dared to quibble, which was equivalent to adding fuel to the fire. Su Jun didn't dare to say anything else, but his eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at Lin Ling. All of this was because of Lin Ling. It wasn't a big deal to hurt him, but more importantly, his brother was hurt. My lord, this person is filled with killing intent. He's not suitable for the martial gods battalion. Su Jun suddenly said. He was unlucky, so he naturally wanted to drag Lin Ling down with him. Killing intent? The man in white armor looked at Lin Ling and narrowed his eyes. Su Jun immediately became excited when he saw this. Lin Ling seemed to be unlucky. That's right. The military camp needs killing intent. Is a man without killing intent? That's just an embroidered pillow. Unfortunately, the man in white armor's next words almost made Su Jun vomit blood. Dense killing intent. Not only was he not eliminated, but he was also admired? What kind of logic was that? At this moment, the man in white armor was still looking at Lin Ling. He suddenly said, "They all bowed to me. Why don't you bow?" As soon as he said this, everyone realized that everyone had bowed. Only Lin Ling was still standing there in a neither arrogant nor servile manner. It was no wonder that the Lord would ask this because it was disrespectful. Perhaps the Lord was already angry. Lu Chengfeng and Su Jun started to worry for Lin Ling. I don't owe you any favors, nor am I your soldier. I don't know you, so why should I bow to you? Lin Ling said indifferently under everyone's gazes. Chapter 2174. Begging others is better than begging yourself. You dare to be disrespectful to the Lord? You are seeking death. Die. The surrounding soldiers were enraged. A terrifying aura enveloped Lin Ling like an avalanche. Although the strength of these soldiers hadn't reached the World King realm, they were still extremely terrifying. However, they hadn't received any orders to kill Lin Ling, thus they didn't dare to attack. They could only use their auras to suppress Lin Ling. Unfortunately, what hadn't Lin Ling seen in his life? Perhaps his strength couldn't compare to these soldiers, but in terms of the trials and tribulations he had experienced, in terms of the number of people he had killed, he wasn't any less than these soldiers. Thus, Lin Ling still stood like a mountain, like an immovable king. Not bad, you have some pride in your bones. The white-armored man suddenly laughed. With a wave of his hand, the surrounding soldiers withdrew their auras. He lightly said, "Then why did they salute but you didn't?" Yes, they saluted for 2 reasons. First, they had something to ask of the Lord. Second, they respected the Lord. Thirdly, it should be following the crowd. Lin Ling lightly said, "Interesting. So you don't have anything to ask of me, you don't respect me, and you don't want to follow the crowd? You really are a junior who does things your own way." The white-armored man's eyes became increasingly curious. Because this is a military camp. Begging others is better than begging yourself. Yes. Lin Ling enunciated each word clearly. As these words fell, the hearts of the surrounding youths exploded. Yes, this was a military camp, not a sect, nor a dynasty. You couldn't do well just by flattering others. Everything depended on yourself. So you don't place me in your eyes? The white-armored man spat out. His face turned icy cold. A terrifying aura swept out, suppressing Lin Ling. Lin Ling's complexion changed, but he clenched his teeth and held on, steadying his position. Begging others was better than begging himself. He had been like this his entire life. However, the Grand Commander's aura was truly terrifying. He was like the king of a world, making it harder and harder for Lin Ling to hold on. If he hadn't experienced so much, if he didn't have a part of Li Xiaoyao's memories, he would have definitely failed. However, as a person of 2 lifetimes, Lin Ling had always relied on his strength to walk through the wind and rain. This perseverance and strength were his strongest backing. Good. Right at this moment, that frightening aura disappeared. The man in white armor laughed out loud, which was a rare sight. His laughter was heroic. What a good if you ask others, it's better to ask for help yourself. Little guy, I think more and more highly of you. You have cultivated for less than 1,000 years, but your murderous aura is stronger than some experts who have cultivated for 10,000 years. Most importantly, your willpower and backbone are not weak. I hope that you can pass this test smoothly and join my team. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding youths immediately revealed envious gazes. Su Jun felt as disgusted as if he had eaten a fly. Lin Ling had actually gained the recognition of that lord. Do your best. Lin Ling smiled and nodded. He didn't say any hot-blooded empty words. He reckoned that in the military camp, everything was based on strength. Everything else was avoided as much as possible. Sure enough, the man in white armor nodded again. He liked this kind of stable and unyielding junior. I will also announce this mission. The name of the mission is Blood and Kill. The goal is to exterminate 13 lower commanderies and more than 1 billion experts. These lower commanderies came from the lower realm, but they violated the rules of the martial god realm. Therefore, the martial god battalion intends to use this mission to exterminate the bandits to let the geniuses from the lower realm gain experience. The duration is 1 year. Those who survive will become a member of the martial god battalion. Of course, the more bandits you exterminate, the more rewards you will receive. However, the prerequisite is that you can survive. The man in white armor said indifferently. Hearing this, many people gasped. They had to face more than 1 billion experts. This was too terrifying. Moreover, their strength varies. The strongest one has reached the peak of the martial emperor realm. At least 30% of their realm essence has been converted. Therefore, don't think that this mission is easy. This mission is very cruel. You can die at any time. As for those righteous young geniuses, You don't have to worry too much. Since the martial god battalion attacked them, they must have done something that angered the heavens and the people. Get ready. We will set off in 3 days. After the man in white armor finished speaking, he looked at Lin Ling and said, My name is Xueqi. I hope that you can survive this mission. That will be a victory. Hearing this, Lin Ling's face turned serious. Surviving was a victory? This showed how difficult this mission was. Sir Huang, I have a friend who has been burned by the realm essence on the martial god path. I wonder if there is a way to save him? Lin Ling looked at the man and asked, Realm essence on the martial god path? This is troublesome. The man in white armor frowned. The realm essence on the martial god path was not like the realm essence of a martial artist. It was more overbearing. Only treasures could save him. Warm Sun Vitality Jade. If you have it, your friend can be saved. Then where can I get it? If you can enter the top 10, the battalion will reward you. At that time, you can ask for it. Thank you, sir. Lin Ling finally relaxed. That mysterious blue-robed young man had not lied to him. He could indeed save Xueqi Go. Thank you. The man in white armor's eyes narrowed. He had just thought that Lin Ling was steady, but now, Lin Ling had become so exaggerated? He said solemnly, Don't thank me yet. You have to know that to enter the top 10, you have to stand out among 100,000 geniuses from all over the world. No matter what kind of problem it is, I will succeed. Lin Ling's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. For the sake of Xueqi Go, how could he fail? The man in white armor looked at Lin Ling with surprise. In the end he laughed. He was more and more optimistic about Lin Ling. After chatting for a while, the man in white armor left. The other young men looked at Lin Ling with envy. To be able to gain the appreciation of the man in white armor was extremely rare. Although the white-armored man, Xueqi, was only one of the great commanders, his words carried a lot of weight. Su Jun glared at Lin Ling with hatred. If he had the chance, he would definitely kill Lin Ling. That Su Jun is probably going to do us harm. Lu Chengfeng said with a frown as Lin Ling led Pan Luyun and the others away. With his strength, he won't be able to do anything. Besides, we have to face more than 1 billion warriors. It'll be chaos then. It'll be good if he can take care of himself. Lin Ling said with a smile. That's true. But to be chased by more than 1 billion warriors, it's scary just thinking about it. Pan Luyun's face turned serious. You've never been chased before? Lin Ling asked curiously. Although he felt that the mission this time would not be easy, it was impossible for him to be afraid. Pan Luyun shook his head. In my hometown, who dares to chase after me? Hearing this, Lin Ling shook his head helplessly. This guy was like a flower in a greenhouse. As expected, warriors who had not cultivated for more than 1,000 years were like juniors to the martial god realm. Chapter 2175. The mission began. 100,000? Amazing. Pan Luyun sucked in a breath of cold air. So little. Lin Ling was speechless. He envied these rich young masters. After all, his path of growth was not so smooth. Little? Lin Ling, don't tell me you were hunted down by millions of people. The two of them looked at Lin Ling in shock. I've tried hundreds of millions. Lin Ling shook his head and strode forward. Lu Chengfeng and the others were stunned. Lin Ling's cultivation time was the same as theirs, but he had experienced so much. Suddenly, they were curious about what Lin Ling's hometown was like. Was it extremely cruel? If they knew that Lin Ling had defeated all his enemies on the path of martial arts with his own perseverance and finally became an emperor, they would not find it strange. 3 days later, it would be the bandit extermination. During this time, Lin Ling hurriedly cultivated. This time, he used all the divine crystals he had to cultivate. These divine crystals were obtained by Lin Ling from the third statue. He had been saving them for future use. However, he knew that the strongest people in the 13 commanderies were not ordinary people. Lin Ling had no choice but to treat it seriously. Furthermore, he searched through his memories for a suitable nomological martial art. 9 steps of the divine demon soon. Lin Ling found a suitable nomological martial art. This was a nomological martial art suitable for the divine demon body. When cultivated to the peak, one could reach 80 million laws and have the speed of a divine demon. To put it bluntly, This was a martial art that combined the laws and the physical body. With boundary essence, one could open a void passage. However, it did not mean that one's speed was fast. For example, during a battle, it was difficult to hide in a void passage for a short period of time. The opponent would not let you do as you wish. However, the 9 steps of the divine demon had a speed comparable to that of a void passage. It was even more convenient. If only I could use boundary essence to execute it. Lin Ling was secretly regretful. Currently, his boundary essence relied on simple execution. There was no technique to speak of. The reason was that he did not have the corresponding martial art. So, he could only use law martial techniques for a short period of time. However, with his strength, it wouldn't be long before law martial techniques were no longer suitable for him. After a night, Lin Ling had successfully cultivated the 9 divine demon steps. He reckoned that unless he encountered an expert at the peak of the martial emperor realm, he would be invincible with this martial art. Of course, the peak of the martial emperor realm possessed boundary essence, unlike the sun god king who only specialized in the law. The next day, Lin Ling comprehended his soul force and strengthened his evasion domain. After all, the mission was to survive, so there would definitely be more life-saving means. As for the 3rd day, Lin Ling was comprehending his boundary essence. Currently, his boundary essence had been converted to 10%. Hence, unless he encountered those top geniuses from various worlds, he wasn't afraid of others. As for his cultivation, Lin Ling was getting closer and closer to LV5 Martial Emperor realm. On the morning of the 3rd day, Lin Ling walked down from the inn in high spirits. At that moment, in the city, all the geniuses from various worlds were on the streets, preparing to participate in the blood and kill mission. Some of them were brimming with killing intent. Clearly, they were the same as Lin Ling. They had grown up in the midst of setbacks and difficulties. Some of them were like flowers in a greenhouse. Clearly, their family backgrounds were extraordinary. They were strong, but they lacked experience. However, in general, everyone's blood was boiling. It was as if they had already gained a firm foothold in the martial god realm. As for the martial god battalion, 10 experts with unfathomable strength were chatting. These people were all commanders. Many geniuses from various worlds had signed up to join them. On my side, Yan Beishan from the south will definitely enter the top 10. That's because his boundary essence seed has almost reached 10%. So powerful? However, my side is not weak either. The young princess of the square commandery is under my command. No way, the young princess is a native martial artist. She's definitely more powerful than the martial artists from the lower world. It seems like she's going to occupy a spot. The geniuses from the East world aren't weak either. It seems like this year's martial god battalion is blooming. Let's wait for them to survive. I'm afraid that less than half of the 100,000 people will be left. These experts were all wearing armor. They were serious in front of outsiders but relaxed in front of their own people. They were used to the upcoming task of suppressing bandits. There were countless people in the myriad worlds. If one wanted to gain a firm foothold in the martial god realm, there were obviously conditions. The weak were not qualified to come to the martial god realm. I also have a good genius on my side. At this time, another voice rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Commander Huang Qi who had spoken. Sir Huang, in the past 100 years, most of the geniuses on your side were ordinary. Why are you so confident this year? Someone teased. 3 days ago, I saw a good seedling. He's not afraid of the killing intent of the battalion. Keska, he's definitely this year's dark horse. Huang Qi said confidently. Haha. Hearing this, the others laughed. Most of the soldiers that Huang Qi had brought were ordinary. This time, he must have suffered a setback, so he boasted. May I ask what the talent of your genius is? What's the grade of his Shen body? Someone asked. Huang Qi opened his mouth wide and found it hard to answer. In fact, the genius that he was talking about was Lin Ling. However, he had forgotten to check what kind of talent Lin Ling had. May I ask how many laws that genius of yours has? Let's ask again. Has the boundary seed grown? Has it reached 10%? The other commanders laughed and Huang Qi's face became gloomy. Sir Huang, you don't know anything. How can you be sure that he's a dark horse? You should know that there are 100,000 geniuses from various worlds this year. It's not easy to stand out among them. Moreover, He's not afraid of killing intent. This doesn't mean anything. Someone said. Bullshit. I have high hopes for him. Xueqi said. Old Huang, we've worked together for thousands of years. This time, it's not that I don't have high hopes for you. With your careless character, I'm afraid that you don't even know the cultivation of that genius. An old man who had a good relationship with Xueqi said with a smile. I do know that. He's a rank 4 martial emperor. Xueqi said bluntly. He was still able to detect Lin Ling's cultivation base. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The laughter became even crazier. A rank 4 martial emperor was at the bottom among the 100,000 geniuses from various worlds. How about a bet? 10,000 divine gems and a drink. Do you dare? You're ruthless. However, let's bet. Anyway, I have high hopes for him to enter the top 10. I'll bet too. Voices rang out one after another. The 10 great commanders had all participated in the bet, causing cold sweat to appear on Xueqi's forehead. You guys are really greedy wolves. Haha, we'll definitely drink your wine. The commanders smiled. Although they seemed to be betting, they had a good relationship with each other. Moreover, the friendship was built through battles. Chapter 2176. War drums beat. Lin Ling naturally didn't know about the bet between these great characters. He followed the crowd to a vast and boundless prairie. The prairie was quiet and a mysterious aura emanated from it, causing one to tremble in fear. It was as if the depths of the prairie were the mouth of the Grim Reaper. Lin Ling's face turned solemn. As far as he knew, even the most ordinary experts of the 13 commanderies were stronger than the Sun God Emperor. This cruel mission was not easy. However, it was also a good experience for Lin Ling. The first step to gain a foothold in the martial god realm is to survive. Remember, in this mission you are also scouts. Yes. Of course, if you have confidence in yourself, you can assassinate the Emperor of the 13 commanderies. If you succeed, you will be rewarded handsomely. Yes. Go. Yes. A dignified voice rang out. Dong, dong, dong. At the same time, the war drums beat. At the edge of the prairie, a large number of armored soldiers stood orderly. The war horses neighed, forming a terrifying battle chi that soared into the sky. It was as if an army was going to war. Kill! Kill! Under the angry shouts of the soldiers, 100,000 geniuses rushed into the prairie. The mission of blood and kill had begun. However, after the geniuses from various commanderies rushed into the prairie, they slowed down because there was an oppressive aura in front of them. The warriors of the 13 commanderies seemed to know that the soldiers of the martial god battalion had entered the prairie. Therefore, they would not wait to be captured. In order to survive, they would not show mercy. In order to become stronger, they would not show mercy. The aura of more than 1 billion experts was hidden in the prairie, and they were not weak. Without a doubt, the murderous aura made the 100,000 geniuses stop in their tracks. My sword, where is it? However, a young man in a green robe strode out, ignoring the terrifying murderous aura of the prairie. His hands were behind his back, and his steps were steady. After walking for a distance, he suddenly stopped, as if he was comprehending something. Then, he smiled and walked forward again. Seeing this, many people's faces turned solemn. Even the solemn commanders in the distance squinted their eyes. That is the disciple of the 10 sword immortals of Qingzhou, the falling flower flowing water sword. Finally, someone said solemnly. No one had expected that the martial god battalion would welcome such a terrifying expert this year. His sword can smile. Those who can see his sword smile are all dead. Someone said. Seeing the young man disappear into the prairie, they felt that the warriors of the 13 commanderies. Amazing. His talent is definitely a dark body. And his boundary origin energy. That was because there was always someone better than him. In his world, he was one of the best, but after coming to the martial god realm, he had seen even more powerful existences. When I first came to the martial god realm, I heard about him. His strength is indeed terrifying. Although he is only a rank 7 martial emperor, he can defeat all the martial emperors. His strength is comparable to a sector lord. Especially the sword in his right hand, it can make the dead die with a smile. Lu Chengfeng said in a low voice. One could hear the unwillingness in his voice. His left sword is the most powerful one. At this moment, Lin Ling spoke as well. He was shocked by how ferocious those experts were. How do you know? Pan Luyun and the others looked at Lin Ling in surprise. When he put his hands behind his back, I saw that the nails on his left hand were neatly trimmed. They were stable and clean, much better than the nails on his right hand. Lin Ling said, "You saw it from so far away? How do you prove that his left sword is powerful?" Pan Luyun and the others were even more surprised. A person who often uses his left hand will be very strict with his left hand. For a swordsman, the calluses, fingernails, and even the pores are all very important. This is because the details determine the success or failure of a swordsman. Swordsmen strive for perfection. They will not miss this small detail. Lin Ling said calmly. Based on your analysis, it is possible. Lu Chengfeng and the others nodded. Details determine success or failure. A swordsman would not allow any factors that could affect the outcome of the battle to occur. Lin Ling, are you from the North Territory? That place seems to be very ordinary. Why is it that although your cultivation level is not high, you know more than us? Lu Chengfeng suddenly exclaimed. He no longer had any disdain for Lin Ling. Lin Ling smiled and did not say much. Although he did not find Li Xiaoyao's memories in the martial god realm, he had obtained most of them. His vision was not weak. That person is not simple, Lin Ling said suddenly. Someone walked out of the prairie and went straight into the depths. His appearance was not dazzling, but he had the aura of the Emperor of the 9 states. It was a kind of universal power. Voices came from all around. Damn, even Di Baimo is here. Why is the martial god barracks so attractive? It is said that the martial god barracks is his springboard. If you want to go to that place, you have to go through the martial god barracks. The son of the great ancestor, Di Baimo. It seems that he will definitely enter the top 10. From the voices around, Lin Ling knew that the young man seemed to have a terrifying background. Then, a few more people that Lin Ling could not underestimate appeared. For example, a boy, who was said to be the disciple of the chess deity, called Chess Boy. There was also a white-haired young man, who seemed to be called Wu Qingzi. There was also a fairy-like girl, who came from the Square Commandery, one of the 4 commanderies in Qingzhou, called Tang Yue. These people were the focus of Lin Ling. Of course, some of them were not weak, but Lin Ling estimated that they were not a threat to him. Let's go. Without thinking too much, Lin Ling led Pan Luyun and the rest into the prairie. Previously, they had discussed that if they entered the prairie, they would try their best to form small teams in order to survive. As more than 100,000 people entered the prairie, a bloodthirsty light bloomed in the depths of the prairie. In just one day, some lone warriors met with misfortune. More than 1 billion bandits were hiding in the prairie. Once they found a lone warrior, they killed him immediately. Blood dyed the prairie red. Many of the inexperienced strong men were afraid at this moment. Of course, there were also many geniuses like Lin Ling, who had rich strength and experience. Therefore, they sneered at the arrival of the massacre. Time quietly passed. 3 days later, several thousand of the 100,000 geniuses had died. This made people sigh with regret, because those who died were all extremely terrifying existences in their own world. However, in this world, they had all turned into piles of yellow earth. Gradually, many people began to form teams because this would increase their chances of survival. Strong teammates were undoubtedly valued by many people. Chapter 2177. Encounter in Empty City. Lin Ling did not care about this at all. In the past 3 days, he had gone through many bloody battles and he was getting closer to rank 5 Martial Emperor realm. Once he did, his 6 paths reincarnation would reach the peak. On this day, Lin Ling and the other 2 continued forward. A huge city appeared in front of them. However, it was empty, and there were many geniuses resting inside. After a few days of blood and slaughter, many of the geniuses were exhausted, so they naturally wouldn't miss a place to rest. After all, this was only the beginning of the mission. Wait, don't drive me away. Just as they entered the city, Lin Ling and the other 2 heard a weak voice. Looking over, he saw a woman in her 20s. Her face was covered in tears as she looked at a restaurant. She seemed to have been abandoned by her teammates. Upon closer inspection, she was severely injured. Not only was her right arm almost broken, even her dantian was in a state of near collapse. No wonder. A teammate like her would undoubtedly be a burden. No one would want her. How heartless. Forget it. It's better to take care of ourselves for now. Those 1 billion bandits aren't sheep. We're the sheep. Those bandits can't wait to kill us and devour our flesh and blood. No wonder the Martial God Battalion wants to exterminate them. Devouring flesh is indeed despicable. That woman won't live for more than 3 days. There were teams of all sizes on the streets. No one wanted to help her, because in this cruel mission, surviving was the most important thing. That southern border's fairy Dan ran. Her background isn't weak. Unfortunately, she's too pure. With her looks, as long as she offers her body, there will definitely be many people who will protect her. However, she rejected them. Coupled with her injuries, the others must have abandoned her. Someone else said. Fairy Dan ran. Scram. In an empty restaurant, a cold voice rang out, causing the eyes of Lin Ling and the others to flicker. This voice was somewhat familiar. It seemed to be Lord Su's voice. How pitiful. He joined Xueqi's team only to be abandoned in the end. Sigh, let's take care of ourselves first. Pan Luyun shook his head and said. He wanted to help, but the experience of the past few days told them that even they were in danger, not to mention helping others. Lu Chengfeng's eyes flickered. He almost stepped forward, but he seemed to be hesitating. You're so noisy, bitch. Are you trying to lure those bandits here? When the city is besieged, we will all be killed by you. Hearing the woman's unreconciled voice, an angry roar came from the restaurant. As soon as he said that, the eyes of the geniuses on the street turned cold. That's right, none of them wanted to be implicated by that woman. Dan Ran turned even paler and stopped crying. She clenched her teeth and left the city. However, she knew that being alone in the prairie meant certain death. How about joining us? However, just as she turned around, a smiling voice sounded. This voice was extremely calm, but when it entered everyone's ears, it was like a dream. Someone actually invited a cripple to join them? Countless gazes looked towards the street and discovered that it was an extremely unfamiliar trio. Furthermore, their strength did not seem to be very strong. Those 3 want to play the hero and save the damsel in distress, but they don't seem to have seen clearly where she is. Those 3 idiots. Who wouldn't want to play the hero and save the damsel in distress in any other place? But in an iron-blooded mission, everyone cares about themselves. No matter how beautiful a woman is her life more important? Those 3 idiots, I said they won't live past 3 days. Many geniuses said disdainfully, as if watching a good show. You're inviting me? Donron's beautiful eyes narrowed. Though the 3 people in front of her were average in strength, it was good enough that someone invited her. After all, they could help her a little. Of course. The youth in front of her smiled innocently and shrugged. My teammates agreed too. Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a long time, but the captain didn't agree, so I couldn't bring myself to ask. One of the teammates smiled. The other was somewhat helpless, but still nodded. The 3 of them were none other than Lin Ling and the other 2. They all abandoned me because I'm injured and can't fight. Why are you inviting me? Dan Ran found it hard to believe. Because the team that abandoned you has a conflict with us, so we'll take the person they don't want. That's all, Lin Ling said with a smile. He was frank and did not hide the purpose of his visit. I see, but thank you anyway. Dan Ran hurriedly bowed. Though Lin Ling wasn't really saving her, at least he was helping her. Who's so bold? At this moment, a voice came from the restaurant. Then, a large number of figures appeared in the corridor. One of them was Su Jun. This was because the other party had invited the person their team didn't want. Wasn't this embarrassing for them? Haha, this genius from Cutie Commandery is so forgetful. How can he not recognize us in the blink of an eye? Lin Ling said indifferently when he saw the figures in the restaurant. It's you. Su Jun was slightly surprised. His teammates were extremely curious, but after Su Jun's explanation, they understood why the 2 sides hated each other. No way. Those 3 dared to provoke Cutie Commandery? Those 3 must be from the lower world. Haha, they're no match for Su Jun's team. They're really 3 idiots. The crowd laughed. In their opinion, Su Jun's team was extremely powerful. Many geniuses wanted to join them, but no one had heard of Lin Ling's team. So, they're fighting with me. Not bad, not bad. Su Jun's expression was calm. He suddenly looked at Danran and extended 3 fingers. If you join their team, believe it or not, you won't live for more than 3 days. 3 days? Haha, if they hadn't entered the city, they wouldn't have survived even 1 day. 2 level 5 martial emperors and 1 level 4 martial emperor. If they were on the prairie, they wouldn't even survive 2 hours. No one was optimistic about Lin Ling's team. They all sneered. This was also why Su Jun didn't attack Lin Ling. In his opinion, Lin Ling's team was doomed, so there was no need to waste his energy. It's better to follow them than to be abandoned. Danran gritted her teeth and glared at Sojin's team, her eyes brimming with fury. Before joining the team, she had been the first to rush forward when they were in danger. In the end, she was seriously injured and abandoned. That team was shameless. Do you look down on us? How about a bet? If we survive for 3 days, you'll take off your clothes and walk around the city. How about it? At this moment, Lin Ling sneered. Haha, okay, I'll accompany you. Chapter 2178. The Great Army Attacks. Alright, I'll wait for you to fulfill your promise. Lin Ling chuckled, then left with Pan Luyun and the others. They found an inn in the city to rest for the time being. Su Jun smiled disdainfully as he watched Lin Ling and the others leave. The teams on the streets were the same. Of course, they couldn't be bothered with Lin Ling and the others. Right now, their priority was to rest and prepare for the coming massacre. Thank you. Inside the inn, Goddess Danran bowed to Lin Ling. No need. When we're outside, we're friends. Besides, I think this place is relatively clean. Let's rest here tonight. I'm guessing that a large number of bandits will attack the city tomorrow. Lin Ling came to the window and looked into the distance with a smile. Lin Ling, really? Pan Luyun and Lu Chengfeng's expressions changed. Although Lin Ling's cultivation level was lower, they'd all witnessed his miraculous abilities. That was why Lin Ling was their leader. Indeed. Fortunately, there aren't many bandits. As long as we can stop their massacre, we'll be able to rest for a long time, Lin Ling said confidently. His left eye seemed to be able to see through the grassland. Although his eye of time had been greatly suppressed in the war god realm, he could still see very far. Moreover, the all-encompassing demonic eye was extremely powerful. It allowed him to see through his opponent's true strength. No concealment could escape his eyes. The all-encompassing demonic eye wasn't very offensive, but its support abilities were heaven-defying. If there's any danger, don't worry about me. Just try your best to escape the city. Danran bit her lip. She also walked to the window and looked out at the oppressive army. She'd never imagined that she'd die in the war god realm. However, death was inevitable in a battle between 2 armies. In fact, the 100,000 geniuses were more like scouts, or in other words, scouts. Of course we won't care about you, Lin Ling said. Lu Chengfeng and the others narrowed their eyes. They were really going to ignore her? If they were going to ignore Danran, why save her? However, Lin Ling's next sentence left them at a loss. Because when the enemy arrives, you can kill them yourself. How was she supposed to kill the enemy when she was gravely injured? Even Fairy Danran looked at Lin Ling in confusion. Lin Ling was still looking at the increasingly murderous world. His calm voice made Pan Luyun, Lu Chengfeng, and Fairy Danran's eyes shake violently. I can cure you. As soon as he said that, the entire inn fell silent. Fairy Danran's right arm was severely injured. Most importantly, her physical power source had been shattered and had almost collapsed. Could Lin Ling heal such an injury? For a moment, several people stared at Lin Ling, thinking that Lin Ling was joking. Don't worry, if I can say it, then I'm naturally confident. Lin Ling smiled. He was lucky enough to have such memories. Unfortunately, healing Shen Yuan Gu and the others required precious treasures. Otherwise, he could have done it himself. If that's the case, then I won't let you down. Fairy Danran grew excited. If she could recover her strength, then she wouldn't die so easily. Lin Ling didn't explain. He had Fairy Danran sit down cross-legged while he set up a formation. When the dazzling formation appeared, Fairy Danran and the others were stunned. They hadn't expected Lin Ling to be a boundary master, and at the level of a blue-robed boundary master. This was extremely frightening. A blue-robed boundary master was definitely not a low-level boundary master. Night fell quietly. Slaughter continued on the prairie. The geniuses who hadn't found a place to settle down were constantly being slaughtered by bandits. The night passed quietly. In a distant place, an expert riding on a giant wolf stared coldly at the ground. The Martial Gods Battalion has sent out 100,000 scouts. We must keep those scouts in the prairie forever. When the Martial Gods Battalion's army moves out, the 13 commanderies will also move out and fight to the death. The expert riding on the giant wolf said coldly. With a wave of his right hand, the mighty cavalry rushed toward the prairie. At a closer look, there were wolves, tigers, dragons, and even tigers and cheelants. If these mounts were in Lin Ling's world, they would have been no weaker than little saints. At this moment, in Lin Ling's empty city, the people were still resting. At this moment, Lin Ling stood up and said indifferently, "The enemy has surrounded the city." As soon as his words fell, the faces of the people in the inn changed dramatically. Kill. Sure enough, a deafening sound came from outside the ancient city. All the scouts in the city were on guard. Kill. However, they were only a little surprised because this kind of crisis could happen at any time in the prairie. How many people are there? About 5,000 of them. They are all level 5 martial emperors. Fortunately, it's not a lot. We can take them down. After eliminating them, we will continue to rest in the city. A powerful genius in Lord Su's team said indifferently. Shall we go out and kill the bandits? Another genius was eager to move, his face full of murderous intent. No need. There are many trash teams in the city. Let them die. When the trash is eliminated, we will take action, Lord Su said with a cold smile. He was referring to Lin Ling's team. The powerful teams in the city also had the same idea. Hee. Wasn't there a very arrogant team yesterday? They bet with Lord Su's team that they could live for 3 days. Haha, I think they won't live past today. There are only 3 of them. Their numbers are already small to begin with. With the addition of a burden, how could they not die? Let's go take a look. The teams did not leave their respective residences. Instead, they used a secret technique similar to the Sky Eye to observe everything that was happening in the city. At this moment, the city was in chaos. 5,000 bandits had charged in and killed everyone they saw. The people were plunged into misery and suffering. The small and weak teams were in danger. They fought with their lives on the line. However, there were still geniuses who died. As for Lin Ling's team, they encountered more than 100 bandits surrounding the inn and were fighting. This scene attracted some people's attention. They realized that Lin Ling, who was extremely arrogant yesterday, was actually very weak. This was because Lin Ling was actually using the law to kill the bandits and did not use the boundary seed. There were 2 reasons for this situation. First, Lin Ling was training himself and did not want to rely on the boundary seed to sweep through everything. Second, Lin Ling's boundary seed was still very weak. It was at the stage where it had just sprouted. Therefore, he was using the law to fight against the bandits. Of these 2 situations, everyone naturally thought that the second was more likely. Indeed, they won't live past a day. Many people no longer paid attention to Lin Ling's team of 3. In their opinion, those 3 idiots were dead for sure. At this moment, in the vicinity of the inn, a terrifying impact seemed to overturn the ancient city. A large number of bandits surged over like a tide. Lin Ling's team of 3 had solemn expressions as they fought against the incoming enemies. Lin Ling did not use the boundary seed. Instead, he used this opportunity to train himself. He relied on the power of the law to resist. Chapter 2179. A Miracle. If I use my boundary essence, with the power of my boundary essence, I will definitely be able to kill them in a short period of time. However, I am about to break through, so I should focus on tempering myself. Lin Ling's heart was as clear as a mirror. In the end, after he killed more than 70 bandits, a large number of bandits came surging from the front. Lin Ling also chose to retreat. Go, Fairy Danran. Alright. Finally, Danran flew out of the inn and unleashed her spatial energy. It wasn't as dense as Lin Ling's, but it was stronger than the others. What a great helper. Hee. I wonder if Xueqi will cry if he finds out that he gave up on such a powerful teammate. He's definitely going to cry. This battle took 3 full days. The bandits around the Lin Ling Inn were all wiped out. On the night of the third day, all the bandits were finally eradicated. The city was also covered in blood. What was surprising was that there were actually more than 10,000 bandits who had killed their way into the city. The next morning, there was a brief moment of tranquility in the empty city. Those powerful teams finally came out with smiles on their faces. Although they had suffered some losses, they had finally overcome a calamity. Now they could rest for a few days. Yo, you only have 5 people left in your team? There were originally 50 people. Those bandits are too ruthless. They are also very strong, and all of them are fighting with their lives on the line. On the streets, voices kept ringing out. At this moment, they saw Lord Su's team walk out. All of them looked high-spirited. Let's go and collect the corpses of those 3 from last time, Su Jun said with a smile. Although their team had been hiding from the bandits this time, they had also suffered considerable losses. However, compared to the complete annihilation of Lin Ling's army, he felt that those losses were nothing. Oh, by the way, Sukuin made a bet with that person from last time. What a pity. I'm afraid those people are all dead. Otherwise, it could be seen as them stripping naked and running around the city. Let's go and take a look. Just treat it as collecting a corpse. The crowd followed Su Jun, but when they arrived at the inn where Lin Ling and the others were staying, all of them fell silent, and their pupils violently trembled. Over there, human heads were piled up into a tower. Upon closer inspection, there were probably no less than 2,000 human heads. Most importantly, the 4 figures standing there were actually counting heads. More importantly, those 4 people were none other than Lin Ling and the other 3. Not only was Lin Ling not dead, even Fairy Dan Ran, that burden, was still alive. If not for the fact that they could hear Lin Ling and the others talking, they would have thought that they had seen a ghost. You really came at the right time. It's been exactly 3 days. At this moment, Lin Ling's faint laughter was suddenly heard. The bet was to survive for 3 days, and Lin Ling and the others had succeeded. Moreover, they seemed to be living very comfortably. Impossible. I saw with my own eyes that you were about to be wiped out at any moment. Su Jun glared at Lin Ling and couldn't help but roar angrily. Yeah, the bandits killed their way into the city. It was extremely difficult for these guys to resist. How could they have survived? Did someone help them? This is simply a miracle. The other teams exclaimed in surprise. What's wrong? Are you willing to accept the bet or not? Lin Ling ignored the voices around him and looked coldly at Su Jun. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at Su Jun. After all, most of the teams were from different realms, and Su Jun was a native of Martial God realm. From a certain point of view, they were definitely on Lin Ling's side. The reason they didn't think highly of Lin Ling and ostracized Lin Ling from the beginning was that they thought Lin Ling and the others were bound to die. That bet was obvious to all. Su Jun also agreed very readily, so he can't go back on his word. That's right, but what we're curious about is how you guys stopped the massacre. As long as you have an explanation, we'll support you. Many people spoke up, causing Su Jun's teammates' expressions to turn ugly. However, they still stared at Su Jun, implying that they couldn't help Su Jun with this matter. Su Jun's heart was boiling with anger. He said indifferently, "Don't worry, I represent Xueqi Commandery. I won't go back on my word if I lose, but there's a prerequisite. You guys have to rely on yourselves to get through this difficult situation. Otherwise, it would be against the rules of the bet if others helped you." He didn't believe for a second that Lin Ling and the others could stop that wave of bandits. You have a pair of good dog eyes. Indeed, most of these bandits weren't killed by the 3 of us. Lin Ling smiled. Did you hear that? This bet doesn't count. Su Jun burst into laughter. He didn't expect Lin Ling to be so stupid as to admit it. The crowd sighed. Lin Ling shouldn't have admitted it. Wouldn't it be fine if he just said that the 3 of them killed the bandits? But I'd like to ask, is Goddess Danran one of us? Lin Ling suddenly asked. Of course, when you invited her, everyone saw it. She belongs to your team. Su Jun was still laughing at Lin Ling's stupidity. He was about to wave his hand and leave when Lin Ling stopped him. Hold on. I said someone helped us, but I didn't say who it was. I'll tell you now. That person is Goddess Dan Ran. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all stared at Dan Ran. If they remembered correctly, this beauty was heavily injured. That was why Su Jun's team had abandoned her. But now, Goddess Danran had stopped the bandits' massacre? You're joking, right? Goddess Danran was in our team before. Do you think we don't know how strong she is? Beside Su Jun, a young man immediately shouted coldly, his face full of contempt. Lin Ling glanced at Goddess Danran. She nodded coldly and stepped forward. She gently thrust her hand forward, releasing a mysterious power. Realm Essence. Moreover, it wasn't in the form of a Realm Essence seed. It had already matured. Although it hadn't reached 10%, it was stronger than most people's Realm Essence. Bang! The talkative young man's expression changed. He also released his Realm Essence, but when their palms collided, he was swept away by a gust of wind and flew hundreds of meters back. He crashed into a restaurant in the distance and couldn't get up again. Do you know how strong I am? After defeating her opponent in one move, Goddess Danran looked at the crowd mockingly like an icy fairy. Hiss hiss. Gasps could be heard one after another. Some of them were even rubbing their eyes to see if it was real. When Goddess Danran wasn't injured, she wasn't weak. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been recruited by Su Jun's team. But now, she seemed to have recovered her strength. Goddess Danran, what happened to your injuries? A burly young man asked with a frown. He still couldn't believe it. I've recovered and my cultivation has increased slightly. My realm essence and talent have fused better, Danran said calmly. Most geniuses used their realm essence but didn't fuse it with their talent. The reason was that their realm essence wasn't strong enough. Chapter 2180. Destruction followed by re-establishment. Hearing this, the burly young man's face turned ugly. He suddenly said, "How about joining us? In this cruel mission, having a strong teammate would undoubtedly increase the chances of survival." Hee. Do you think that's possible? Don Ron's mocking expression deepened. The burly youth immediately felt a little embarrassed. When the others were injured, they abandoned them. Now that the others had become stronger, they would definitely not care about them anymore. It's all your fault, Xueqi. If you hadn't called her a cripple, how could we have abandoned her? The burly youth vented his anger on Lord Su. After all, Lord Su was not the strongest in their team. Su Jun was also tongue-tied at this moment, unable to say anything. Now, have you fulfilled your promise? Lin Ling said with a calm expression. This matter is obvious to all, so he can't go back on his word. If he reneges on his debt, then his cutie commandery will lose face. Xueqi and I are teammates. But in this matter, I'll side with reason, not kinship. Murmurs erupted from the crowd. Even Su Jun's teammates didn't speak up for him, because they too were angry at Su Jun for abandoning an expert like Dan Ran. Do I really have to run? Su Jun's pupils trembled. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. Let's fulfill our promise first. As for other matters, we can deal with them later. Even if he wanted to help Lord Su, it seemed very difficult now. Most importantly, the others were supporting Lin Ling. He definitely did not want to incur the wrath of the crowd. After all, he might need the help of the other teams in the upcoming bandit massacre. As for the grudge between Su Jun and Lin Ling, he naturally couldn't be bothered with it. He would deal with it after the bet was completed. All right, I'll take it off. The surrounding voices made Su Jun feel helpless. He glared at Lin Ling with resentment and slowly took off his clothes. Do? I didn't expect you to have such a hobby. Lin Ling suddenly laughed. The crowd's eyes narrowed. That was because Lord Su, a genius expert, was actually wearing a doo-doo underneath his clothes. This hobby left them speechless. And it's red. Lu Chengfeng couldn't help but say, "Ha!" The crowd finally burst into laughter. After Su Jun took off his clothes, he quickly ran along the empty city. This could also be called streaking. Your skin is quite white. You must be a gigolo. But it's so small. Laughter came from behind, making Lord Su wish he could dig a hole and hide in it. He hated Lin Ling to the bone. If it wasn't for the fact that the Martial Gods Battalion was backing him up, he would have killed Lin Ling a long time ago. However, he would never let Lin Ling off. As for Lin Ling, there was a cold glint in his eyes. It was impossible to resolve the grudge between him and Su Jun. Therefore, if there was a chance, he would not let the latter off. Suppressing the thoughts in his heart, Lin Ling shook his head and entered the inn. Right now, he needed to raise his strength as quickly as possible. Because of the wave of bandits 3 days ago, he also felt some pressure. They had only killed a few thousand bandits, but they were a little powerless. What if it was more than 1 billion? Moreover, his left eye saw that even more cavalry had appeared on the prairie, and they were crazily slaughtering the geniuses from all over the world. It wouldn't be long before this city was definitely not safe. However, the battle 3 days ago had made Lin Ling about to break through. After entering the inn, Lin Ling sat down cross-legged. The divine crystal energy left in his body last time was being continuously absorbed. The source of corporeal energy in his dantian was also becoming larger and larger. Outside the spherical energy, there was a faint layer of light lingering around it. That was the boundary essence. Bang, bang, bang. As if the sky was falling and the earth was cracking, the sound continued to ring out. The source of corporeal energy seemed to be breaking through the laws of heaven and earth and stepping into a new world. Outside the city, after watching the good show, the geniuses from all over the world went back to rest. They only treated the previous matter as a joke. What they cared more about was the upcoming massacre. This was because they had also sensed that something was wrong. It was as if even more experts had descended, and the city seemed to be in danger. This was also the reason why they had helped Lin Ling before. It was because they didn't want to see Lin Ling being suppressed. With one more person, their survival would be guaranteed. As for Lord Su, he gritted his teeth and ran through the entire city. When he returned to the inn, his teammates looked at him strangely. Red-do-do, Lord Su, your taste is really unique. His skin is quite white, but it's a little small there. His teammates laughed as they spoke. Although Lord Su's background wasn't small, since they were able to join this team, their background couldn't be underestimated. Therefore, they didn't have much fear towards Lord Su. Shut up! Lord Su roared angrily, and his resentment towards Lin Ling grew. Then he said word by word, although the mission this time is to face 13 commanderies, the Martial Gods Battalion didn't explicitly state that we can't kill our own people. Hearing this, the others narrowed their eyes, and at this moment, they fell silent. When it came to such matters, they would naturally watch with folded arms. After watching the show, Lu Chengfeng and the others all returned to the inn. When they saw Lin Ling breaking through, they were speechless. Danger could come at any time in this place, and they could all be wiped out at any time. Yet, Lin Ling was in the mood to break through? This guy is really brave. If a strong enemy comes and stops his breakthrough, he'll be in trouble. At that time, he won't be able to fight back. Pan Luyun shook his head helplessly. That's because you're too inexperienced. For some geniuses who often train, the more dangerous the place, the more they need to break through. How can they grow without breaking? Luyun, I've realized that you're the least experienced among us, like a flower in a greenhouse. Goddess Danran said lightly, but her beautiful eyes were fixed on Lin Ling with curiosity. She sensed that Lin Ling was different from the geniuses of other worlds. He seemed to have experienced many things and could be compared to the strongest geniuses. It could be said that if Pan Luyun and the others had not followed Lin Ling, they would have been dead. I'll guard him. You two can walk around, in case something happens. Goddess Danran said. All right, I've rested enough anyway. My bones are itching. Pan Luyun and the others nodded. Lin Ling was at a critical moment. Around him, surging nomological laws roared and white flames spread out. What a rich nomological power. Seeing this, Goddess Danran's expression changed. She sensed that Lin Ling's nomological laws were rising rapidly and had reached 80 million. Lin Ling was only a level 4 martial emperor. Would his nomological laws reach 100 million after breaking through? That was too terrifying. After all, one could only reach 100 million nomological laws after reaching level 7 martial emperor. Where did he come from? He's so powerful. Goddess Danran was surprised. She was even more curious about Lin Ling. Chapter 2181. Realm Breakthrough, 100,000 geniuses from all over the world. None of them are weak. If they fight, the 13th commandery will have more casualties, but the 13th commandery has more people. If this goes on, many geniuses from all over the world will die. Since we're here for the mission, we're prepared for life and death. Don't think too much. Hey, there's a deer. While the two of them were chatting, they suddenly saw a white deer sweeping across the prairie. Although the deer looked like an ordinary species, it made them excited. Both of them reached out and caught the deer. After skinning it, they brought it back to the inn and roasted it. They might die in the next moment, so they cherished the time before them. Since that was the case, they had to eat their fill first. They didn't want to starve to death in hell. In front of the inn, the aroma of meat wafted out. On the second floor, Goddess Danran shook her head helplessly. However, after smelling the aroma, she licked her lips. However, just as the deer was about to be cooked, several figures suddenly appeared. You're in a good mood. You're still thinking about roasting meat. Be careful. You'll die quickly if you eat too much. The newcomers were Lord Su. They looked down at Pan Luyun and the others from above. This guy is here. Danran was the first to react when she saw Lord Su and the others. However, when she saw Lin Ling, who was about to break through, she stood still. Below the inn, Pan Luyun and the others looked unsightly. Lu Changfeng said, "It's none of your business. How dare a person from the lower world speak so arrogantly?" Lord Su's face was extremely gloomy. The anger in his heart was like a bomb that had been set on fire. Now it was finally ignited. This was because if the news of him running naked was spread out, the Iron Su Commandery would lose all its face. His family would also punish him. How could a native warrior of the martial god realm be toyed with by ants from the lower world? This couldn't be justified. Therefore, he had to kill these lowly ants. Your arrogance has come to an end. Realm essence appeared in Lord Su's hand, and he threw out a mighty punch. Boom! The entire street shook. With just one punch, Pan Luyun was severely injured. Instantly, a large number of geniuses walked out of the street, frowning as they watched the scene. They never expected that Lord Su would actually make a move. Although the martial god camp didn't stipulate that geniuses couldn't attack each other, it also didn't explicitly state that it was allowed. So, this sort of attack might be a violation of the rules. If the martial god camp investigated and wanted to pursue these mistakes, then Lord Su might be eliminated. Sukuin, you're clearly going all out. If it were me, I'd probably do the same. After all, it's not a good thing to run around naked. Those fellows are in for some bad luck. Many people shook their heads. Bang! Another explosion was heard. Although Lu Changfeng was not weak, he was unable to fend off Lord Su and the others. Moreover, Lord Su was a rank 6 martial emperor realm genius. If he was in Lin Ling's world, he alone could defeat all the ancient giants. Go fucking die! Lu Changfeng suppressed his injuries, roared angrily, and pounced again. Not bad. You actually have 4,000 laws. However, your boundary essence is still unstable. The boundary essence seed must have just awakened. Lord Su let out a long breath and said disdainfully. At the same time, he released his own laws. This was the power of 6,000 laws. Puff! Lu Changfeng was instantly sent flying and smashed onto the ground. If Lord Su hadn't wanted to slowly humiliate him, he would have killed him in one move. The 3 people beside him were all smiling as they picked up the roasted venison and ate it. You bastard! Pan Luyun was furious. It wasn't easy for them to find the venison, but these guys snatched it away. Trash doesn't have the right to speak. King Cloud step. One of the young men sneered and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Pan Luyun. His big hand grabbed out, and the power of the universe was released. Bang! Pan Luyun was grabbed by the neck and smashed into the ground. The young man stepped on him and ate the venison. He smiled and said, "Martial artists from the lower realm shouldn't be too arrogant in front of us native martial artists." As soon as he said that, the geniuses from all over the world narrowed their eyes. They were unconvinced, but when they thought of Lord Su's background and strength, they endured it. You want to eat venison? Eat the bones. Lord Su also smashed Lu Changfeng to the ground and stepped on him. You've gone too far. Lu Changfeng and Pan Luyun's eyes were red. On the second floor, Fairy Danxia clenched her fists. She hadn't made a move because Lin Ling was at the critical moment of his breakthrough, so she had to protect him. But now, she couldn't hold back anymore. But at that moment, the void suddenly fluctuated behind her, and the white flames began to retreat like the tide. Success! She felt the surging aura. Fairy Danxia couldn't help but be delighted. At that moment, Lin Ling slowly opened his eyes. The moment he opened them, A bright light shot out from his left eye, shattering the void. It was extremely sharp. Now, he had successfully reached the level 5 Martial Emperor realm. His 6 paths of reincarnation had also reached the peak. He had reached the complete realm of the heavens and had 100 million laws of power. If he were in Lin Ling's realm, he could easily bring someone into the reincarnation cycle. Moreover, with the breakthrough in his realm, his divine demon body and soul power had also increased slightly. His own laws had also reached 500,000. However, Lin Ling converted all of the laws in his body into the boundary essence, increasing the power of the boundary essence slightly. With 100 million laws of power and 10% of his realm essence, even if Lin Ling's talent wasn't strong, he could defeat any level 7 martial emperor. As expected of the martial god realm, it feels like the time spent cultivating here is much shorter. Lin Ling smiled. With my current strength, the Sun God King and the others won't be a match for me. Even if they join forces, I won't be afraid of them. He finally relaxed. In the past, he could defeat all of the ancient giants with his realm essence. However, if they joined forces, he would have a headache. But now, he wasn't afraid. Moreover, after coming to the martial god realm, he had seen a lot of experts and felt pressured. But now, he felt that he wasn't at the bottom anymore. Lin Ling, you've broken through. At that moment, Fairy Donxia's surprised voice was heard. Lin Ling smiled and nodded. Seeing this, Fairy Donxia was shocked. Previously, she couldn't see through Lin Ling. Now, she couldn't see through Lin Ling. Perhaps Lin Ling's strength could be ranked in the upper middle among the 100,000 geniuses. Oh no, Lord Su is here. After the surprise, Fairy Donxia suddenly said and pointed outside the inn. Hasn't that stray dog been taught a lesson enough? Lin Ling was a little surprised. In his opinion, Lord Su had suffered many losses in front of him. He should have restrained himself. Then, he quickly walked to the window and looked outside the inn. Suddenly, a strong murderous aura spread out from his body. Chapter 2182. Waste. In truth, Lin Ling had been using the Qi concealment divine art to hide his aura, so others couldn't sense his killing intent. But when he saw what was happening outside the window, he subconsciously released his killing intent. That killing intent was accumulated from killing hundreds of millions of people. Naturally, Fairy Donxia found it difficult to resist. Outside the window, a large number of youths gathered in the distance, frowning as they watched everything unfold before them. Below the inn, Lu Chengfeng and Pan Luyun were being stepped on. Su Jun and his friends were eating venison and throwing the bones in front of Lu Chengfeng and the others. This meat is not bad. You two really have the fate of slaves. We've finished all the roasted meat. I'll leave the bones for you. The youths who were eating the venison laughed. You've gone too far. Lu Chengfeng and the others were roaring, but Su Jun enjoyed their angry voices. He threw a bone on the ground and stepped on it a few times. Then, he kicked it at Lu Chengfeng and the others. Eat these bones. When the other youths saw this, they immediately followed suit and stepped on the bones on the ground a few times. Eat it right away. Ha ha. They were so arrogant that the geniuses from all over the world couldn't stand it anymore. But when they thought of Su Jun and the others' identities, they swallowed their anger. Do you want me to feed you? Su Jun narrowed his eyes when he saw that Lu Chengfeng and the others were unwilling to submit. I'll feed them. If they don't eat, I'll break their teeth. One of the youths understood Su Jun's intentions very well and walked over. Don't let them waste food. Su Jun immediately smiled and nodded. However, just as he finished speaking, an explosive shout rang out like a bolt from the blue. Waste your mother. In the sky, a sword slashed down fiercely. The sword light was like a crescent blade, and the roar of a demon god could be heard. Boom! The violent sword slashed down, and the youth who wanted to feed the bones was smashed into a meat patty. From this, it could be seen how terrifying this sword was. Suddenly, countless gazes turned to the figure that suddenly appeared. They were surprised to find that the youth was Lin Ling. Of course, what surprised them was that Lin Ling was actually so strong. You've come. Lord Su was also surprised by Lin Ling's crazy methods. After all, his friend was a level 5 martial emperor and had 3,000 laws. How could he have been smashed to death by a single sword strike? Why are you in such a hurry? You have a share of those bones too. Su Jun said coldly. Among so many people, he wanted Lin Ling dead the most. At this moment, Lin Ling slowly turned around, and his icy cold eyes stared at Su Jun. Terrifying killing intent suffused the air, and it actually caused Su Junto feel a chill in his heart. Last time, he'd been affected by Lin Ling's killing intent, and this time, he noticed that Lin Ling's killing intent was even denser than before. Kill him. However, killing intent did not represent strength, so Su Jun was still confident. Lin Ling, let me help you. On the second floor, Fairy Danxia immediately said. No need. I'll deal with these pieces of trash by myself. Lin Ling said in a cold voice. This was the first time he wanted to kill someone so much since he came to the martial god realm. It was also the first time he had killed someone. Bang! With the sword in his hand. His god-demon body was even more domineering and majestic. Die! Lin Ling slashed out fiercely with his sword. His physical strength was strong enough to move mountains and rivers. Under that sword, the eyes of the young man who wanted to attack trembled violently. The power of the laws that he had unleashed was instantly destroyed. He did not even have the chance to activate his boundary essence seed before he was smashed into pieces by the sword. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. That sword strike was so terrifying. The crowd widened their eyes. In their impression, Lin Ling was not so strong. Could it be that he did not use his full strength when he was suppressing the bandits? Someone exclaimed, causing many people to nod their heads. This was the only explanation. Shaman Luo Vine. Another young man suddenly gritted his teeth and activated 4,000 laws. Moreover, he pointed out with his finger and the light of boundary essence bloomed. He took advantage of the moment when Lin Ling was killing his companions to attack Lin Ling viciously. Azura Dao. Lin Ling did not even look at him. He stretched out his left hand. In his palm, white flame surged out like ripples, easily blocking the young man's power of laws. His right hand did not stop. He slashed out with his sword. Rumble. Although the young man had a boundary essence seed, it was clearly only at the awakening stage. Under the 6 paths of reincarnation and the tyrannical song sword, his body was cut in half. As he stared at Lin Ling, his upper body began to slide down. He never imagined that while Lu Chengfeng and the others were not strong, this Lin Ling was actually so strong. He's broken through. Previously, his laws of fire had already reached over 5,000. The surrounding geniuses all sucked in a breath of cold air. They gradually noticed the changes in Lin Ling. Of course, even Lord Su was the same. To him, Lin Ling was clearly a formidable opponent. It looks like I've underestimated you. But don't think that with 5,000 laws you can look down on everyone. All over Lord Su's body, the surging laws were roaring. Very good. Lin Ling was not as weak as he had imagined. This was what he wanted to see. However, while he regarded Lin Ling as a formidable opponent, Lin Ling did not regard him as a formidable opponent. Heavenly Dao. A low roar came out of Lin Ling's mouth, and 100 million laws erupted. The moment these laws appeared, the entire city shook. The white flame seemed to envelop the entire city, making it difficult for many people to breathe. Especially the geniuses present, they were dumbfounded. This was because Lin Ling was only at the rank 5 martial emperor realm, but he possessed 100 million Dharma laws. In the martial god world, one had to be at least at the rank 7 martial emperor realm to possess 100 million Dharma laws. Not every rank 7 martial emperor had one. As soon as the laws appeared, Lord Su's face turned pale. He never expected Lin Ling to be so strong. He suddenly realized that he had not figured out Lin Ling's exact strength. Next, was there a need to fight? Obviously, there was no need. All his laws and boundary essence would not be able to block Lin Ling's heavenly Dao laws. Moreover, Lin Ling had not used his boundary essence yet. Therefore, he immediately knew that he was no match for Lin Ling. You've got guts, Lord Su said. He was already thinking of running away. However, could he escape? Rumble. In the sky, the surging heavenly Dao reincarnation erupted with a terrifying suction force, pulling Lord Su's body, making him unable to move. As for Lin Ling, he walked over step by step, as if the flame god was walking over. What are you trying to do? Looking at the expressionless Lin Ling, Lord Su began to panic. However, Lin Ling did not say a word. His expression extremely cold. On the contrary, The geniuses from the various worlds kept exclaiming in admiration, and some even became excited. So powerful. I wonder which world this guy is from. He's actually stronger than the native cultivators of the martial god realm. A level 5 martial emperor with 100 million laws. His strength can be considered above average. Moreover, he has not used his boundary essence yet. Chapter 2183. Eat the bones. Lu Changfeng and the others stood up as well. They were shocked by Lin Ling's heaven-defying strength after his breakthrough. However, they soon burst into laughter. They had been humiliated before, and now it was their turn to fight back. Eat all the bones on the ground. At this moment, Lin Ling shouted coldly. I'll eat. Su Jun gritted his teeth and replied. He had no other choice now. His strength was inferior, so he could only lose face. If you dare eat a piece less or spit out a grain of sand, I'll kill you immediately, Lin Ling said again, causing Su Jun's body to tremble. He never expected Lin Ling to be such a ruthless person. Yo, the mission hasn't been completed yet, but we scouts are already fighting among ourselves. If the Martial God Battalion finds out, I wonder how they will punish us. However, at this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. A large number of people walked over from the street. It was Su Jun's team. When he saw them, Su Jun's eyes lit up and he almost felt proud because his teammates had arrived. The crowd also narrowed their eyes. They wondered how Lin Ling would deal with this relationship. It's none of your business. However, Lin Ling shouted angrily. Ha! Su Jun's teammates narrowed their eyes. What did it have to do with them? This Lin Ling guy was too arrogant. Immediately, their faces darkened with anger. Su Jun's mouth was wide open. He did not expect Lin Ling to be so domineering. He dared to provoke his entire team alone. Hurry up and eat, or I'll break all your teeth. Lin Ling shouted again. The reason why he ignored those people was because he was not afraid of them. If they provoked him, he would just fight them. Moreover, he had just broken through to the next level. In fact, he really wanted to have a thorough battle to see how strong he was now. Su Jun did not dare to say anything else. He quickly ate the bones, his face full of anger. These bones were leftovers from their meal, and they had also stepped on them. Now, he had lifted a rock and smashed his own foot. As for Lord Su's team, those experts all had cold expressions on their faces, but they also fell silent. Because Lin Ling was too arrogant, they didn't dare to act rashly. However, they believed that Lin Ling, this lowly commoner of the lower realm, would be dealt with sooner or later. Perhaps it was because they were cursing in their hearts, or because someone just happened to be passing by, but at this moment, a figure was floating in the sky above Sky City, overlooking everything that was happening in the city. He held a jade bone fan in his hand, and his white robes fluttered in the wind. His hair casually fell to his shoulders, and he exuded a lazy and carefree aura. Lord Su, you're a local martial artist, yet you're being bullied by ants from the lower realm. How embarrassing. A calm voice drifted out from that person's mouth. With a swish, he opened the jade bone fan and gently waved it. Lord Su immediately raised his head, his face filled with joy. Young Master Thousand Bones, save me. Young Master Qian Gu? Is he the strongest genius of the Bone King Commandery? White Bone Fan, it should be him. This guy is ranked in the top 20 among the 100,000 geniuses from different worlds. Many people stared at the sky, their faces changing dramatically. Young Master Thousand Bones was at the 7th level of the Martial Emperor realm, and his Dharma was extremely powerful. It was said that even his boundary essence was about to be converted to 10%. 10% of boundary essence was undoubtedly more powerful than 90% of the geniuses. After all, boundary essence was harder to be born than Dharma. Why is this guy here? Shouldn't experts of his level be eliminating the masters of the 13 commanderies and fighting for a place in the top 10? Another person exclaimed, as if he had seen a divine dragon appear among a flock of sheep. Is there an expert from the 13 commanderies nearby? It shouldn't be. However, this mission is not in vain since we can see this famous genius. Many people spoke up. Their words were filled with admiration. However, young Master Thousand Bones did not care about their admiration at all. Instead, he looked at Lord Su calmly and said, "Save you? You're a disgrace to us local martial artists. Who would save you?" Lord Su's face turned ashen when he heard this. He knew young Master Thousand Bones, but it did not mean that young Master Thousand Bones would give him any face. However, young Master Thousand Bones looked at Lin Ling and said, "And you, we're on a mission now. Do you think it's impressive to bully your own people instead of eliminating bandits? However, I have something important to do now. You guys better disappear from my sight immediately." Obviously, he did not have time to pay attention to Lin Ling and the others, so he did not bother to pay attention to them. Looking at young Master Thousand Bones, Lin Ling's expression did not change. Instead, he slowly walked forward and stopped in front of Lord Su. This action caused the crowd to be puzzled. What was Lin Ling trying to do? Even young Master Thousand Bones frowned and was a little unhappy. He had asked these weak trash to get lost, but the young man did not give him face. Was it not enough for him to humiliate Lord Su? However, Lin Ling's next action made young Master Thousand Bones' pupils dilate. Lin Ling did not say anything and slashed out with his sword. Slash! Lord Su's head fell off and rolled on the ground. His eyes were wide open. He never thought that Lin Ling would kill him, and in front of young Master Thousand Bones. If he was still alive, he would definitely curse Lin Ling as a madman. Killing him in front of young Master Thousand Bones was equivalent to embarrassing young Master Thousand Bones. How could he know that Lin Ling's principle was to treat others the way they treated him? Lin Ling had never killed Lord Su, so Lord Su should hide far away and not come to court death. Otherwise, whether young Master Thousand Bones was here or not, Lin Ling would kill him all the same. After killing Lord Su, Lin Ling shook his sword, and the blood on the blade was sprinkled by him. The entire process was very calm and even calm. This guy. The crowd was not as calm as Lin Ling. Each and every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air. Then they stared at the sky. Young Master Thousand Bones should be furious. Sure enough, young Master Thousand Bones stopped waving his fan, his face cold and indifferent. "I didn't kill you before because I had important matters to attend to. This doesn't mean that I fear you. You're just an ant from the lower realms. Not only did you provoke us native martial artists, you even dared to kill Lord Su. He came to kill me and I came to kill him. It's that simple. Moreover, this matter seems to have nothing to do with you." Lin Ling calmly said. "Nothing to do with me? He's a native martial artist. No matter how much trash he is, it's not your turn to kill him, much less in front of me. Do you think us native martial artists are easy to provoke?" Young Master Thousand Bones shook his head. Anyone could see that he wanted to kill Lin Ling. "I've never thought that martial artists were easy to provoke. It's just that Lord Su was the one who provoked us first. There are witnesses and evidence in this matter. Could it be that local martial artists have a golden border on their heads that allows them to bully others as they please?" Lin Ling remained calm. Hearing this, everyone nodded. That was indeed the case. It was Lord Su who provoked Lin Ling first. Chapter 2184. I don't care what nonsense you have. Since you dare to kill in front of me, you only have two choices. 1. Die. 2. Fight me. Young Noble Thousand Bones coldly shook his head. His body began to emit a powerful aura. The bone fan in his hand turned into a mountain of bones. Behind him, layers upon layers appeared as if it was made up of countless bones. "It seems like you have more nonsense than I do." Lin Ling looked at the sky and shook his head. He was unfazed, as if the sky was collapsing. Lin Ling had a grudge against him, so he would use strength to decide everything. Since Lin Ling was stronger, he would kill his opponent. This was very fair. What did this have to do with young Master Thousand Bones in the sky? Could it be that Lin Ling was in the way of young Master Thousand Bones killing an enemy? At this moment, many people were secretly on Lin Ling's side. However, they were also worried for Lin Ling. After all, young Master Thousand Bones was a stage 7 martial emperor. Incarnation of the dead card. However, at this moment, a cold voice seemed to come from the depths of hell. 80 million laws burst out, and a mysterious black card appeared in the sky. It was like an ancient gate that smashed down. Moreover, the huge card was not smashing toward Lin Ling, but toward young Master Thousand Bones. This sudden change caused countless people's eyes to tremble violently. What was going on? Even young Master Thousand Bones was shocked. However, when he thought of his purpose for coming here, he suddenly understood. Thousand Bones Mountain Fan. He waved the fan, and layers of bones surged toward the sky like seawater. The number of laws had reached 90 million. However, Lin Ling could see that young Master Thousand Bones only had 70 million laws. The mysterious fan had increased the number of his laws. Crack, crack, crack. The mysterious huge card in the sky suddenly became dazzling and turned into countless palm-sized black fragments. They flew around like locusts, avoiding the sea of laws. However, the huge ancient card soon appeared on the other side. Moreover, it was not just one ancient card that appeared, but 8. It was as if 8 huge divine gates were floating in the sky. The oppressive aura made it difficult for countless people to breathe. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Young Master Qian Gu also spoke when he saw this, and an old man quietly appeared in the sky. This person had a lion's beard and long hair, and he gave off a mighty aura without being angry as he coldly looked at the ground. Kill! At the same time, outside Sky City, a large number of sounds of killing rose to the sky. Sky City had been unknowingly surrounded. It was the enemy. When they sensed the terrifying aura, the expressions of all the geniuses from various worlds changed drastically. The city was surrounded. They were dead for sure. An atmosphere of panic unknowingly spread out. Of course, there were only 2 people who could calmly face such a situation. One of them was young Master Qian Gu. He did not come here because he had nothing better to do. In fact, he came here because of young Master Qian Gu. The other person was Lin Ling. After Lin Ling had broken through to the next realm, his left eye could see that outside the Sky City, there was already a huge army. The wicked king of the 8 gates, the ruler of the 13 commanderies. I didn't expect him to go to battle in person. Young Master Qian Gu's words caused all the geniuses in the city to turn ashen. Not only was there a huge army coming, but even the rulers of the commanderies were here. They were undoubtedly doomed. The rulers of the commanderies were all extremely powerful. Apart from the top geniuses from various worlds, who could stop them? Fortunately, young Master Qian Gu is here. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have a 10% chance. Young Master Qian Gu, you must kill him. Then, many people stared at young Master Qian Gu. A glimmer of hope rose in their hearts. Young Master Qian Gu was one of the top geniuses from various worlds. He might be able to kill young Master Qian Gu. Moreover, they could tell that young Master Qian Gu seemed to have come for the ruler. Unfortunately, they did not see that young Master Qian Gu's face was somewhat grave. He did not pay attention to the admiring voices of the crowd. Instead, he stared indifferently at the old man opposite him. Your strength is not bad. Among this batch of scouts, you should be able to rank in the top 20. The old man finally spoke. His voice was as deep as thunder, as if a lion was roaring angrily. Your Dharma has reached 100 million. Moreover, your sector essence should have reached 10%. You are indeed a strong opponent. My strength is not the strongest in the 13 commanderies. However, I still have a little hope of killing you. The old man clearly did not underestimate young Master Qian Gu. He knew that among these geniuses from various worlds, there were more than a dozen who were extremely terrifying. Moreover, these powerful geniuses had already arrived at the commanderies and were attempting to kill the ruler of the commanderies to obtain military merits. This time, the martial gods battalion had recruited many monstrous geniuses. They had only sent out scouts, but it was already difficult for them to resist. Thank you for your compliment. However, I will not be so arrogant as to think that I can easily kill you, young Master Qian Gu said indifferently. From his attitude towards the enemy, it could be seen that his current strength was not an undeserved reputation. All of you leave. This kind of battle is not something you can participate in. Then, young Master Qian Gu looked at the crowd and sneered at Lin Ling. It was as if he was saying that Lin Ling was lucky. If it were not for the arrival of a strong enemy, Lin Ling would definitely know how lowly he was. Prepare to attack the city. If we don't charge out of Sky City, we will die. With young Master Qian Gu blocking the ruler of the commanderies, we still have hope. Young Master Qian Gu, go for it. The crowd's morale was immediately boosted. Although they were no match for young Master Qian Gu, they would not allow themselves to be captured. You are the ruler of the commanderies? However, just as the crowd was about to move, Lin Ling's voice suddenly drifted out, startling the crowd. What was Lin Ling doing? Young Master Qian Gu stared at Lin Ling in surprise. Can I obtain military merits by killing you? Lin Ling asked again, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. Yes, so what? Young Master Chen Gu smiled disdainfully. He also saw that the person who had spoken was only at rank 5 Martial Emperor realm. This strength was not enough for him to take seriously. Yes, that's right. I will kill you. However, Lin Ling's next words silenced the entire city. Everyone widened their eyes. Lin Ling was going to kill him? Even young Master Chen Gu's eyes narrowed. However, he soon sneered. In fact, he was very afraid of young Master Chen Gu, so he had not attacked. Who would have thought that Lin Ling, a nobody from the lower plane, would overestimate himself and want to fight? Well, I can use Lin Ling to see young Master Chen Gu's strength. The surprise in the Eight Gates Wicked King's heart surged like waves in the ocean. Furthermore, his expression became unsightly because his opponent was the Thousand-Bone Prince, not the ordinary geniuses from the various worlds. If you want to kill me, you have to be alive first. Turn into a death card. Young Master Chen Gu did not bother to talk nonsense. He would kill him directly. Rumble. In the sky, the huge death card that seemed to be able to destroy a realm smashed down heavily. Chapter 2185. Eight Gates Decipher Tyrannical Singing Sword. Lin Ling gave a low shout and raised his sword to block. However, that mysterious giant tablet seemed to be a powerful immortal weapon. Its laws were extremely turbulent, constantly suppressing Lin Ling. He's dead. At this moment, many shook their heads and even mocked Lin Ling for overestimating himself. Even the Eight Gates King was the same. His eyes fell on young noble Chen Gu because the latter was the real enemy. 9 steps of the demonic god. However, in front of everyone's eyes, Lin Ling suddenly vanished. He had actually managed to avoid being locked onto by the laws. You're quite capable. Seeing this, the evil king of the Eight Gates became interested, but he quickly shouted, Death Locust Incarnation. Boom! The huge ancient tablet exploded, turning into countless palm-sized black tablets, fluttering in the air, chasing after Lin Ling. This law is very difficult to deal with. Young Master Thousand Bones thought to himself as he stared at the laws in the sky. He began to analyze how to break the law tablet. He didn't even look at Lin Ling, as he believed that Lin Ling was dead for sure. 9 devil steps. However, Lin Ling's footsteps also became mysterious. He actually weaved in and out of the tens of thousands of black cards, safe and sound. Amazing. That's a law martial technique, and it's at the pinnacle. 9 steps of the Celestial Devil. I seem to have heard of this martial art before. It seems to be the strongest martial art in the Celestial Devil world. The surrounding crowd was astonished. Lin Ling was so hard to kill? Ha! Eight Gates Evil King frowned. 2 moves had failed to kill Lin Ling. This was beyond his expectations. Looks like you're the #1 genius expert in this city, second only to young Master Thousand Bones. Unfortunately, you're still going to die. Eight Gates Bandit King's eyes flickered. Another mysterious giant tablet smashed down from the sky and chased after Lin Ling from above. Being chased from above and behind, Lin Ling was clearly in even more danger. Fairy Danxia almost cried out. However, beneath her gaze, Lin Ling's complexion remained as calm as before. It was as if he had seen through these laws and was able to calmly advance through the army. This time, the entire city was shocked. This was because in everyone's opinion, only young Master Chen Gu was a match for the Eight-Gate Evil King. Who would have thought that Lin Ling and the latter would be evenly matched? Again, this king doesn't believe in heresy. Octagon Evil King's face turned ugly as he summoned even more tablets to attack Lin Ling. In the beginning, the 3 ancient tablets chased after Lin Ling, triggering terrifying laws. Gradually, there were 4. Slowly, 5. Young Master Thousand Bones' pupils hardened. Even he would be in an extremely miserable state if he encountered such a situation. However, Lin Ling was still safe and sound, as if he was walking among a field of flowers. Seeing this unexpected scene, the Eight Gates Evil King blew his beard. Was this ant really that difficult to kill? Hexagon Wicked King Realm. Rumble. An even more terrifying force erupted. The 6 mysterious ancient tablets were like giant shields that pressed down on Lin Ling. Some of them shattered, turning into endless locusts, while others were still as huge as before, smashing down like a divine gate. Facing these laws, Lin Ling's expression turned serious, but he still pushed the 9 celestial steps to the limit. This was because he was not afraid of the 8 gates evil king in terms of laws. 7 gates evil light demonic shadows. The sky was filled with ancient tablets, and the number of laws had almost reached 150 million. 6 paths of reincarnation. Heavenly law. Almost at the same time, Lin Ling finally made his move. The flame in his left hand rose and formed a dazzling circle. In an instant, he also erupted with 100 million laws. This guy. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. I underestimated him. Young Master Thousand Bone and Octagon Evil King shouted at the same time. 8th gate. Octagon Evil King's heart was boiling with anger. He erupted with all the laws as if the 8 gates were to suppress the entire city. If they were suppressed, even if Lin Ling did not die, the others would not be able to escape. He was going to wipe out the city and kill everyone. At this moment, young Master Thousand Bones' heart trembled. If he were to deal with it, he would have to rely on his boundary essence. At this moment, he finally knew that Lin Ling's strength was not much weaker than his. When he thought of how arrogant he was in front of Lin Ling, he immediately felt that it was extremely ironic. Of course, Octagon Evil King felt the same way. After watching for so long, your 8 gates can finally be broken. However, in the face of the calamitous laws, Lin Ling's voice floated in the sky. The 6 paths of reincarnation was still sucking in the 8 gates, slowing down the suppression of the tablets. Lin Ling held his sword and charged forward. His blue robe made him look like a celestial. Whoosh! He slashed out with his sword, slashing at the void. However, the 8 gates did not change and were getting closer and closer to smashing the entire city. He slashed out again, as if he was slashing at the air. Countless people widened their eyes. They did not know what Lin Ling was doing. When the 4th, 5th, and 6th slashes came, the crowd finally panicked because the sky had become gloomy. The 8 ancient tablets were smashing down. They did not know how many people would die because they sensed that the mysterious tablets could probably kill Boundary Essence unless the Boundary Essence was strong enough. Young Master Thousand Bone, please make your move. Then the crowd shouted. They could only rely on young Master Thousand Bone now. However, young Master Thousand Bone's face was pale because even if he did not die when facing the terrifying suppression of the 8 gates, he would definitely be seriously injured. The reason he did not die was because his boundary essence was stronger. So, how could he save people? This also showed that he was utterly unable to resist such a situation. 7th slash. However, Lin Ling was still swinging his sword as if he was dancing in the sky. 8th slash. Lin Ling's figure finally stopped after the last slash. His blue robe fluttered in the air as he looked indifferently at Octagon Evil King. You've given up? Octagon Evil King said indifferently. Your strength actually comes from the 8 celestial weapons, and these celestial weapons cannot be broken at all. Even if they are destroyed by powerful attacks, they can instantly reform and recover their previous strength. Lin Ling said calmly. So you've given up? Octagon Evil King asked again. No, it's because the more powerful an immortal weapon is, the stricter the control it needs. You're using the threads of law to control the 8 gates. The 8 gates are the gate of opening, gate of rest, gate of life, gate of pain, gate of limit, gate of view, gate of death, and gate of wonder. Lin Ling said. So what? Octagon Evil King frowned. He did not know why, but he felt uneasy because the young man in front of him was too calm. Nothing. You just need to follow the corresponding method to cut off the threads of law. Then, you won't be able to control the 8 gates. This is what I saw before. Now break. Lin Ling grunted. As soon as he finished speaking, Octagon Evil King's eyes widened. Lin Ling had seen through his immortal weapons? How was that possible? Were his eyes the eyes of the celestial demon? He must be joking. As a matter of fact, even the geniuses on the ground thought Lin Ling was joking. Bang! However, the next moment, the 8 ancient tablets in the sky broke into pieces right before they were about to hit the ground. They no longer reformed and scattered in every corner of the city like building blocks. The hearts of the people in the city exploded upon seeing this. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.